Hello.
Hey, Steven.
Hello. Hey. How are you doing?
I'm doing good.
You're
I actually
excited
just
about the Magic
noticed.
Tricks?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just noticed that you have like a sort of a reflection going through your. If you look at your own window,
True. Yes,
is
there
it
is
is it
a.
a glare? I think it's called right
Yeah, I guess it's
from
like
the yeah
exactly from there.
yeah.
Yes, I get that's
That's
just
fine. It's
my
fine.
aura.
Yeah,
That's a good point. Unfortunately, like the sun is so low. I guess in winter months it's really interesting, and it gets worse and worse because
yeah.
literally the sun is there. So if I just move it a bit there, yeah, you can see it's
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah, I see.
forgot.
Yeah, I just noticed, and I was
Oh,
wondering if it
moved it.
was, it's a little bit still. I can still see it.
Yeah,
You can see it on your microphone. But I was just looking at it and I
I
thought,
like it.
hey, is that on my screen or is it coming from you? That's fine. It's fine. So if people want to know, it's not your computer. It's Steven's computer. It's
Yes,
Steven. Yeah,
maybe both.
maybe.
Maybe it's perfectly aligned. Like
Yeah,
sometimes the
yeah.
planets, it's not so. Yeah. I hope it's. I can see also in my glasses. By the way, if I move it, my face, you can see it here in my glasses.
Yeah. Exactly.
Interesting. Hello.
Anyway, we were going to talk about bUnit, Blazor, and .NET 9 and getting
Sure.
bUnit ready for .NET 9, which is,
Hopefully.
I guess, next week or so. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. Isn't the .NET Conf starting
Sick.
next week or so?
Well,
Probably we should know, but I think it's in 2 weeks. But I'm .NET Conf 2024.
let's go and say .NET.
Oh, 12 to 14. So yes, it is next week. Therefore, .NET 9
Usually
stable
it's
release,
yeah,
yeah, will be released during, I guess, the first day even.
yeah, and they have oh Steve Smith is probably the. I'm not sure if Mary here is a Microsoft employee, but he's the good for you, Steve, to sneak in here and with well, you're in great company, I guess, in the future speakers list. But yeah, definitely check that out later this well, next week, I guess. But
Yeah.
so technically, bUnit is ready. You can use bUnit to test .NET 9 stuff. But there is one or two features, and I think we actually just need to support that one new feature that that we were working on last Friday, which is being able to deal with render modes during testing.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, welcome back, Callahan. Nice to have you with us.
Back. Yeah, exactly.
Oh,
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
yeah,
We
that's
are
also true.
live.
Yeah.
I agree to
I,
that.
I, it's stacked weirdly. There's a bug in the. Let me show you. Well, now it's going to be Inception. You can see here. It's like just underneath here. So I'm not sure
I
what's going
thought
on
for
there.
a second
That-
maybe it's because of browser zoom, but your browser didn't look like it was zoomed in.
no,
the
it's
first place.
we 100%. Anyway, yeah, and Scott, our newest team member on bUnit, Scott. I'm gonna butcher that. Sauber. I want
I
to say
would call it also
Sauber.
Sauber, like the
Sauber, yeah, Scott
Formula
Sauber.
One Formula One driver.
Formula
or
One
something.
team. Yeah, yeah. That's a Sauber team. At least I was.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
Like in the exactly. I would pronounce it the same way.
Yeah. Yes, he. I made him a maintainer, and he's not here with us yet. He was dropping his kid off from school. He's somewhere in the Midwest, and in the States, so it's quite early there. But he will join us in a little bit, and he was working on bUnit web.query library, which is a bUnit implementation of the testing library APIs. So I made him a contributor. I think that's the term GitHub uses for libraries or for repositories. So besides contributing to the implementation of that library, of this sort of sub library, the testing library testing library APIs to be in it. Hopefully, we can coax him into helping out with other things as well if we need to. So, but don't tell him I said that. He will be here with us soon. So, but yeah, I think otherwise, do we have any community stuff besides?
I think only smaller things. I can just take over the screen like magically.
You want to do that?
Yeah, 3, 2, 1. It's mine.
Yeah.
There we go. Let me. Yeah.
There was that one NuGet pull
Yeah, exactly. Let
request
me
we
just
got
put
from-
ourselves down in the corner and let's make this even bigger.
Yeah.
To make it a bit exactly. So there is a lot of pull requests, but the biggest one or the newest one is from. You know what? I will just put his name big on the screen, and you can pronounce it in your head for yourselves, dear viewer, because I will not go down that road.
Weihan
Try
Lee.
to Weihan Lee.
We-
Okay,
yeah.
I tried it anyway. So the idea is so we are using SourceLink so that even though we are publishing release packages, you have Weihan Lee. Thank you very much. If this is
Yeah,
the
appreciate
pronunciation.
that.
Perfect. We are using SourceLink to upload our debug symbols. So even though everything is in release mode, you can still step into our code. That's just ad break.
Yeah,
It's an ad break. I don't know.
it's an ad break.
The question is, what are we doing during ad breaks? Are we? Should
I
I
guess we are
dance? Should I?
talking about the weather.
The weather is really nice. At least here in Switzerland, it starts to get somewhat of winter. So during the days, it's still nice and warm. But I guess it gets really cold. The only downside here, especially around Zurich, where I am living, is you have. I mean, today is an exception. That's why you can see the glare on my screen. Basically, until 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, it's always foggy. So because I'm close to a lake, and that's just how water and temperature works and humidity. So basically, oftentimes until 1 o'clock or 2 o'clock, it's foggy. Then you have 1 or 2 hours of beautiful sun, and then it's winter time here, so it's dark again at 4 or 5 o'clock. That's how it works here. But as you can see, I always.
We can play some lo-fi in the meantime.
Nice. I don't know, like every time when I look at your picture, I feel it's quite sunny at your place.
Well, I cheat. I have one of those energy light lamps standing next to me, and just helping with energy levels here in Iceland. Well, we're getting closer to the time where we have maybe 4 hours of daylight. So,
Nice.
but yeah, it's sunny out in Iceland as well.
Nice.
So I think
to keep your vitamin D levels
exactly, yeah,
balance.
yeah. It's a bit off to the side, but it sits where my window is. So if there were proper light out, it would it would be all natural. But now I'm just cheating. Yeah.
Awesome. So ad break over.
Anyway, yeah, I guess so. Let's assume so.
that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
don't
It's
think they
about
go
1
that
minute and a
long.
half. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
We'll see.
Maybe we should buy ad space on Twitch and just use our live stream as ad. That would be mind blowing. No, it doesn't work that way. I know. Anyhow, so back to topic. So
We could inception ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. So where was I? Where was my thought? Exactly. So we are shipping obviously release packages to you, but sometimes you want to have debug symbols, and we also want that you have debug symbols because it makes our life easier if there's an exception, because you can copy paste the whole stack trace. And until .NET 8, including .NET 8, or let's say .NET 8 SDK, I guess if I look at the file changes, we were using a package called Microsoft.sourcelink.github. That's and that did all the things for us, and then we could just push that stuff to NuGet with a certain specific name. It was like not new package, it was new package or something like that. It had a different file extension.
Yeah,
And
well, if it's not needed, we might as well take it out. But But I guess
Exactly. And now this pull request is just about removing this thing because it is part of the .NET 9 SDK in the first place. So, yeah.
I
mean, you
think
can just...
I think that should be fine. But I guess what we can do is, because what happens when so actually what I want to do, if you go back to, we can just verify it. So do me a favor, go back to it. It should be done building now. If you go down to the verification, and if you go to the test run, it has built the created NuGet package. If you go there, we can download the created NuGet packages. So under the create NuGet step, I also believe they're just added as artifacts further down. No, you are in the run test.
Thank you. Validate package, probably here it has to get this. This one looks...
Yeah. But there shouldn't be any errors. But what you can also do, because the packages themselves are uploaded as an artifact, so we can
this
go.
One, yeah.
If you go to the summary.
The summary.
So the runner top right left top to, no, not all the way to, just below it says summary. There you go. Yes. And scroll down.
Yes, sir.
Further down. Further down.
Yeah.
Oh, you have to move your cursor out. So you basically go below. Yeah, there you go. Further down. All the way down. Yeah, there you go. There you have artifacts. Click on that. Download the packages.
Yeah.
And do you have the NuGet Package Explorer installed?
No, it's just a zip.
Okay, well, let me steal the screen.
No. There is a cool... Yeah, you can also do that, but online there is from the platform. They have basically this thing online.
Yeah. Well, it's the same app. It's just whether you want to... It's called NuGet Package Explorer.
I will zoom in once I'm on that page. Website. Yeah, this one.
NuGet.info. There you go.
Yeah, exactly. So,
yeah.
And I hope I can just upload, if you know. Can I upload?
So hang on 1 second.
So I've noticed you on Mac. I found views to be quite horrible and no longer supported. Are you using JetBrains? Yes, I do use JetBrains right now. Or not even right now. I use it since a few years. They made it recently free, or let's say like free to use for open source or non-enterprise. So if you non-commercial, that was the right word. Non-commercial use. But
basically
there's
the same license.
Yeah, there's a small caveat. You cannot, as far as I understood, you cannot opt out to the telemetry. So you're sending always anonymous data. But please don't quote me on it. I think you have to read through this stuff. But yes, I don't want to make advertisement for them. I'm not in no way affiliated with JetBrains, with Rider or whatnot, but I do like it. I also use WebStorm for front-end development. But, this is a tool I like.
Yeah, no, I think it's great, and I think it's great that they made the version. I think it's basically the same license as Visual Studio Community Edition, which is basically the full version of Visual Studio, but where you can only use it for open source work. So can you upload a file? That's what we want to do. Okay, so
wait, homebrew. Yay!
Look at. Well, I don't think you have the right one there though.
You sure?
That's just I don't think it's a. You want a NuGet Package Explorer? Yep, that one.
I mean, basically, I just want to. Microsoft.
Hey, hang on. We have Scott.
Oh, hey.
How's it going?
Hey, Scott.
Welcome.
I don't want to interrupt your flow.
No, you're good. We were just well. First of all, thanks for joining us. And what time is it? Because we were trying to do the time zone calculation as well.
So it's 7:52 a.m. So
7:52. Oh man,
so
you drop off your.
What's that?
You drop off your kids quite early then.
Yep. Yeah, so my 1-year-old goes to daycare, and we usually drop her off around like 7:30 or so, and then usually I'm working around 8 or so.
Oh, that's nice.
Yep.
Yeah. So 7:42. 52, I guess. Okay, yeah, okay. So do you have summertime or wintertime? Or is it just static?
Yeah, so we just had daylight savings time, so a week ago this would have been 8:52. But now it's 7:52. Time zones are so hard. I hate time zones.
Yeah. Well, like I was telling Steven earlier in the stream, just move to Iceland. Then it's UTC all year round. No daylight saving time.
That's true. That's true.
There are some advantages, but not a lot. No, it's a great country.
You don't have mosquitoes. That's one of the other big advantages.
Indeed. Yeah.
Daytime.now is what you want.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's going to be completely static all the time. But yeah, so what we were trying to do, because somebody suggested that we remove the source link from the bUnit package, which apparently isn't needed anymore. But because we just ran a build of the PR he sent in, or they sent in, and we want to download the packages and just inspect the package and have, test out whether or not that is actually true for all SDK versions that we are, or target frameworks which we have. And then Steven got into a rabbit hole of trying to figure out how to install the NuGet Package Explorer so we can actually get that information out from a local zip file. But I think once we're done with that, should I just share my screen and do it instead?
yeah.
Because I have all of that. But what we wanted to do, Scott, since you had time to join us today, was to chat a bit about the web.query package we have, bUnit web.query, and where you want to take that and what we can do around that. But let me just get my screen share going. And besides that, the last few streams, we've just been making sure bUnit is up to date for .NET 9, which it seems to be, more or less.
Very close.
Yeah. Yeah, there's, I guess, one thing, right, that we need to do, but that's about it. Well, now I need to find the right place to go to. Well, let's see, details, summary, and here we go. And I look at Package Explorer. Here we go. So if you run it locally, it looks like this. I'm not sure if I can zoom in to it, but let's see if my and I need to extract the zip file. There we go.
Perfect.
So let's just take one of them. Can I do this? I can. And does zooming work? Here we go. Extra large. I don't know if that helps, but
well, it is somewhat better. I wouldn't call that extra large.
Enhance.
Enhance, yeah. So it does say source link, and we are just targeting all different versions. So
yes, you can just.
I guess we can just merge that in. Yeah, let's just merge that in. And thank the contributor. All right, so. Oh, I guess we have to do it the old hard way. Thanks. A man of few words. Rebase and merge. Okay, I'm going to unshare and oh, nice.
Completely new.
I wasn't actually sure if it would figure out because we tried to sort of customize where we put things.
This doesn't work. If you use two people layout, what we
sometimes
I think really the two things we added, which I called Kamehameha, is I guess really specific for a two people setup.
Yeah.
It's okay. I can get the hint.
Yeah. This is on and off.
It's interesting. You always have this voice from the off.
Yeah. It's our bad / good conscience speaking in the background. All right. So I guess so how do we want to go? So you mentioned a few weeks ago that there were, I think. So should we? I'm trying to see how we will go about this. This is very much unscripted, by the way, as you can see. So we're just trying to figure out as we go.
Because other episodes is super scripted.
Yeah. So
It's true. We have a writers team in the background.
I am trying to remember. So there were a few things we actually wanted to do. So you, Stephen, you pushed out a non-preview version
Yes.
recently.
So the next time we do a release, like a real release of bUnit, it will be not flagged as preview anymore.
Yeah, because we decided that it's been used enough and nobody's complained.
I mean, it's almost a 1 year old now, so yes.
Yeah. So it will go out of preview, and I believe what you did implement originally was the
label text.
label text, yeah. And
Yep.
if we go to testing library, can't remember. Oh, it's just testinglibrary.com, and go to docs and the core APIs, and I guess we have these guys here. We have by role, by label text. I guess the one you are more the one. So the label text is fairly straightforward implementation wise. I'm pretty sure that the by role will be much more complex because
Yep.
And I actually think we have an issue. I remember.
There is one, yeah.
Yeah, we first talked about this back at NDC Porto in 2023.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So yeah, I'd stumbled across this. I can't remember who brought it to my attention, and I started to see, well, how can we translate these method names that are the built-in ones to something that is more idiomatic C#, right?
Yep.
And then there is, so these are just the standard queries, and we already have the get by. Well,
For label
we have
text,
we had find and we have a find all that was already sort of, but that just takes CSS selector. But then I think
Do you want me to
These are-
kind of like, if people
Yeah.
aren't familiar with testing library, kind of talk through why?
awesome, that
we
would be
do this?
great.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to share your screen, or should I just
I
go
can
back
just
to testing library?
talk through it.
Okay.
Yeah. So testing library originally started in React. So there's a React testing library, but there's tons of different implementations for like Angular, Vue, even like Cypress to have these types of queries. And part of the reason, if you want to go to like one of those examples, maybe. Up. Just do the like find by text, I guess, maybe. Up
Using
to-
find by text.
Yep. So if you scroll down a little bit to the test side of this. So yep.
This one, I guess, yeah.
So what you would traditionally what you do in bUnit 2 is like you would like grab it by like some sort of selector, like a CSS. Hey, the CSS class or this ID exists or something like that. The kind of challenge with those, or like one of the downsides of doing that is like for instance ID, you might be adding the ID purely for testing purposes, so there's not really like a reason to add it other than testing purposes, which isn't the end of the world. I mean, you know, it's just an attribute and value, but mildly annoying, I guess. The mildly might be a little strong. Apparently my dog started barking, so sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
But like what find by label text is it also does an accessibility thing where so let's say you want to grab an input or a select or text area or something like that. Traditionally what you would do with bUnit today is you would grab it by like an ID or some CSS selector saying, hey, grab me this particular input with this ID. With find by label text, instead of doing that, let's say it's a first name input, you would grab it by, you would say find by label text or component.find by label text, and then pass in first space name. And that is the label associated with the actual input. And so what's nice about that is it also does like an accessibility check where if you don't have a label associated with the input, it's actually going to throw an error and say, hey, you don't have a label associated with this. So like a lot of people use a placeholder instead of a label. And a placeholder is meant to be like, hey, here's an example of this. Yeah.
Let me just keep going. I'll just do some
examples. Yeah,
I suppose.
I think we've got some examples in the. Keep going. So you say find by label text first space name, and if that label doesn't exist, it throws an error. So again, if you don't have accessibility set up, and I actually found an issue in Mudblazer with this where one of their components didn't have the proper label. So where that comes in is accessibility for when people have to use screen readers and things like that is one example. So it's like if you can't see or you're temporarily vision impaired or something like that, you have to use a screen reader that says like tells you kind of what you're interacting with. And if you don't have a label, it's just going to say like input or something like that and not really know anything versus like this is an input with first name label. And so
the ID
name.
Yeah. So that would be name. So classically, what you would do in bUnit, you would say find, and then you would do name, right? And then you would have the element, and then you could do element things to it, right? I don't know. Was it change? We have change.
Just like Copilot, just hit tab. It's fine.
Yeah. But the problem, I guess, is that if I can paraphrase also a bit what you're saying is, so in general, in any kind of testing, if we can avoid having, by the way, let me get my zoom on here. If we can avoid having implementation details in our tests, then we are more likely to be able to refactor this to be something else. It could also be more, input might not change as much, but it could be that you have a button that does a thing and it has a, ID, or it's just a button, right? And if it's like Bootstrap, then it would be class, I don't know, a button, primary. Right. So that's something. And you would go and find that button by just searching for button. But if the fact that this is a type of element, the element type is button, is an implementation detail to some extent, it could also be an anchor tag, right? And because of the way Bootstrap works, it'll just render the same, look the same. So to some extent, especially when you are using bUnit to test Blazor applications, a lot of the markup is implementation details.
Yep.
And we want to be able to, instead of saying this, because this would instantly break our test because now we don't have the button anymore, we would want to say, well, I actually want to do find by, and that's the thing. So with the label that you have implemented, that this sort of work, you can go and say, well, find by label text. If you want to find by label, is it text or list label?
Text, yep.
And you would just say, name : because what isn't an implementation detail is the fact that it says name : here, because that is something visible to the user. So that's externally observable behavior to the end user, and thus not implementation detail. So if I went and moved this element around somewhere else, it will still work, because you could also have scenarios where you would have actually, hang on, I need to take this call, but keep moving on where I'm going with it. 1 second.
Yeah, so where I've seen this too is, so I'm in consultant and I kind of float around to a lot of different clients, and some of our clients are using Blazor and bUnit. And so I get to see how people are using it, and just talked to a client earlier this week who's getting into testing, and they were using Telerex or Progress bUnit controls, and they switched to Mudblazer. And a lot of their selectors were specific to Telerex because they were like grabbing the CSS selectors and stuff like that of Telerex. So in this scenario, let's say you were using Telerex controls and then you switch to Mudblazer, Blazerize, or whatever other component library you have. If you did it this way, you'd still have name colon and the same labels and stuff like that, but the underlying implementation details would change from, you know, Telerex to Mudblazer or whatever else. So it's kind of like, you know, again, kind of hiding those implementation details and kind of forcing you to do non-implementation detail specific tests if you start writing your queries in this way, versus when you kind of have a query selector, you can kind of do whatever you want and it doesn't like force you into any path. You just kind of have to know like, oh, I should generally do this thing. So I've seen a lot of people write query selectors around like, you know, Mudblazer, Telerex, or whatever specific queries, which then kind of tightly couples your tests to your implementation details. So kind of the big premise behind testing library is write your tests the way your users interact with your application. And so your users interact with your application via, you know, hey, I type in this name field in this case, not, oh, I grab this Mudblazer, this Telerex component selector. So that's kind of the whole premise behind it. And if you write your tests that way, in general, they'll be more resilient to like refactors and things like that. So
yeah, I found myself when I've been using Playwright to do some end-to-end testing for Blazor applications I've created, and they're having the find by label text and find by role does highlight whenever you miss adding a role or you mix them up or you accidentally copy paste too much. So it does also give you that advantage, I think, and that's probably what you just said, that you actually you're sort of dogfooding accessibility yourself, even though you might not be impaired in certain ways. So yeah, I think it's really good. Good.
Just some people are like, I don't, you know, I have all the internal users. I don't support, you know, I don't care about accessibility, which is probably not the best mentality to have. But some people have those thoughts, and you know, they might know all those people. But we've all had that experience where there's like a checkbox with a label next to it, and we click the label and nothing happens. We have to like go click the checkbox. That is because somebody didn't wire up the label to the checkbox. So even if you're like, oh, we don't support, you know, visually impaired people for whatever reason, you probably still have run into that scenario, and that affects everybody. So,
and I think it's also, even though you don't have visually impaired people, there's a lot of tooling on mobile devices and computers now that leverage the same capabilities, so that it also becomes easier for just normal, regular abled folks, right? So I think it's a good habit to get into. And I remember starting to add the end-to-end tests to that app I had, and I regretted not doing it initially because it was just like, thankfully it was we were pretty consistent with the things that we had missed, so it was easy to find all of them and sort of sort that out. But yeah, so I think for what we want to, so we have find by label text. What we want to have as well would be the find by role. And so label text is, well, it's not a trivial implementation, but it's not hard either, because there's no complexity. That's not the same complexity as we have with find by role. So correct me if I'm wrong, but find by role works in a way where you could say, well, I want, I don't know, role type button or whatever. We haven't really settled necessarily on the particular way it should work. But if you just say find by role a type button, you will find something that is of type button. And in this particular case, what I should be doing here, if this should still be a button, I should add role button here to make it still be a button. Whereas if I had it like this, and well, I guess we still have the classes. The button, the fact that it's a button it has the role of button is implicit. So there's certain elements in HTML5 that have implicit roles, and then there's the elements where you have explicit roles. So implementing this is not just about creating a bit of CSS selectors and then manually searching the DOM. You have to add additional knowledge into the setup.
Yep. And the
So,
label has the similar things where there's a few different ways to do it. So, like for instance, you could get rid of the label and do aria dash label on the input and say aria dash label equals name. Now that's not going to light up. Yep. Yeah. So then you can just do like name there, and that's not going to like show for users, but like it will show up for screen readers. But like technically that satisfies having a label as well. And there's like 3 or 4 other implementations. There's like there's like a strategy pattern basically of like we try some of the more common things. Like we try that one, the first one that we had first, because that's the most common thing people do, and then we kind of run down the list of options. So HTML is fun because there's like eight different ways to do the same thing, but they all kind of have different reasons for existing too. So
I've been. Then there's also title, which is the title attribute, I assume, right? So you can have here. But I've been wondering. I was actually, just because I grew up in the early 2000s where there was the alt tag and the title tag, and that was basically the accessibility we had back then in the good old days. And so I've made it a habit of always adding titles. Also, sometimes if you have if you're building maybe like a business focused UI where you don't want to have too much extra, help labels and other things around, but you just want people to be able to hover for extra input field or hover a button, but not having to have a description below the button says what does that do. Adding something like a title here will just have that built-in pop-up small thing, so new users to the system will be able to figure it out, and specialized users don't get all the noise. So that's typically if you're building to a smaller audience on internal application, right? But you seem much more familiar with testing library. Where do you if I both have a role and a title on a element, which one is the right one to use? Or if I have a label text for that matter?
If you click about queries up there, there's a priority guide. If you click on that up a little bit, or so it kind of tells you, hey, here's kind of the default. Prefer get by role, then get by label text, and you can kind of see like get by label text. I said this is really good for form fields, and then they kind of walk down the tree, and at the end of the tree is get by test ID, which is kind of like if you keep going.
That's the fallback, and I think a test ID would be, is it data.test ID?
Yep, all lowercase.
Yeah, and then that's just a random test data you had in. I guess I've never used that myself.
In general, I'm going to say 9 times out of 10, and that might be generous. It might be more than that. 9 times out of 10, when I see people use get by test ID or find by test ID, they could have done it a different way. But people, kind of sometimes just that's what they know is like, oh, I grab by test ID, so I'm just gonna, or I grab things by IDs, so I'm just gonna do that. But that gives you no accessibility help that we talked about earlier, or any of that kind of stuff.
So there's queries accessible to everybody. Then there's semantic queries, and we're here we have the alt text and get by title. Consistently read by screen readers and is not visible by default for sighted users. So
a lot of times you have to hover over a button with a title to get it to show up or something. So
unless you do some CSS tricks, I guess. Say again?
You cannot hover on mobile, so it also doesn't work on mobile devices.
No, do you press and hold?
I don't think that works.
I don't think it's even that. No, probably not. Yeah, you're completely right. So a get by role, I found I used get by role quite a bit, but then there's also the whole you can basically customize the filtering. And I'm actually kind of annoyed that get by role doesn't use exact by default, at least in Playwright. So, well, no, that would be label text, I guess. Yeah, no, that's probably label text, the text-based ones, where it will try to do a contains string matching instead of doing an exact one by default. But yeah, no, yeah. So yeah,
Yeah, I'm kind of like, to be honest, get by role is kind of annoying to use for buttons. Like you can see there's like get by role that button, and then you pass like an object with name colon whatever. I'm like,
yeah,
sometimes I write like a function that's like get button, and I just pass in the name.
yeah.
Just because I don't know, typing is hard apparently. I don't want to type like 15 extra characters.
And I guess also for we might do something like this, and I might have actually had some thoughts on that originally in the issue get by role, where we have the. I actually said we probably, I think that's a fixed number of roles, right? So we probably can do it as an enum instead of having as a string, or at least as an overload. But then there's a whole bunch of things where the complexities of implementing this shows up with the options type that you can pass in, right? And at least I think this is what I extracted from the testing library's get by role definition originally. So yeah, but then the syntax would be something like this, and then you would probably just use the new shorthand syntax and do something along these
like
lines
that.
where you would say, name and then something.
I think Copilot had it for you.
Yeah, well, yes and no, because then I guess, but then we would have text match. I think that's because you can do regex, but it could also just be a string. So I guess then you would need something where this can actually be implicitly converted from a string if you want to pass in, I don't know, foo here instead of newing up a text match. So, and that's, then again, we could also, I don't like all the ways they do that in Playwright, but they have a C# implementation in Playwright for the testing library. And I don't actually know if they have all the logic in C# or if they're just calling the JavaScript implementation from C# and passing that through. But that might be, if they have it actually implemented, like all the logic of it, traversing the DOM tree and figuring things out, that might be worth stealing some from them. And it might even be worth not going with what I suggested here, but going with what they have, so if people want to go back and forth between bUnit and Playwright, they can more easily do that. But I am not necessarily bullish either way about. I think, I do remember there were some things that annoyed me about the Playwright way of doing it, but could be wrong.
Yep.
Does the React version also support regular expressions?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah.
So if you go back to the get by role name submit, so that if you go back to that,
this one. Am I in the right one?
I was going to show the example. If you go back one, so like that get by role up there. Wherever you were before. Yes, can you scroll up? Maybe
this one.
No, can you go back a few pages or one page? Another one.
The examples.
Yeah,
I think we were looking at this.
What's the example?
Yeah. Here we usually get by role.
Yeah, so there was an example back there, but like that name, the login, that's right there.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, you could do like /login/I, and
the shorthand for a regular expression in JavaScript.
Yep, and it'll kind of figure it out. So
yeah, Yeah, and that's, I guess, the advantage they have in JavaScript is that they can do
Yep.
doc typing, right? So if it's not a string, it's something else. We can kind of get around that too, I guess, to some extent.
I mean, we do have the options where we're gonna like as I think in your original like API design back on GitHub, there was like the by role options, and then part of that was going to be the comparison type too.
Yeah, text. Yeah, comparison type. Yeah, string ordinal. Yeah, so you can.
That's what I've found a lot of people use the regex for, is just like making case insensitive or something like that. So
yeah, I don't know if I had any intelligence to say about the text matcher here. Let's see, text mat. Text. I need to move my keyboard. I'm hitting the right. It's not going great. No. Text match delegate. Oh yeah. Oh, it's just a delegate. So it can be yeah, well, it's just delegate, so that takes some text in and returns bool whether or not it matches whatever is in the element. And so that can, if it's just a delegate, it can be something that does a regex, it can be something that does something else. So what you could do is you could probably create an implicit conversion from, if people pass in a regex, a C# regex, it could be implicitly converted into a text match. If they pass in a string, it could be implicitly converted to this. Maybe that's going to be a bit harder. Yeah, so that's definitely going to be some finagling around with with the API to make it nice to work with.
Yep.
Playwright dev introduction. Let's see.
I think it would be cool if we're close to Playwright or had options to be close to Playwright. So if you're switching between the two, it's not a huge.
Yeah, especially like stealing some of their enums.
Stealing such a harsh word.
Well, borrowing.
Being inspired by.
I see what you mean. Oh man, it's open source. I have no problem with stealing, but yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's but yeah. So I can't even remember if they support.
Well, they do get by, which is instead of find by.
Yeah, and I think the reason why I chose find by is because we already had find and find all.
Yep.
I think
it's not the end of the world.
No, that might be a small one to fix. Most of what I've done in terms of writing tests, though, has also been just, I haven't actually had a big need for, because before I started building apps for work, Blazor apps, then I mostly just experimented with building component libraries, and they're using the testing libraries APIs seemed was less useful, or it yielded fewer benefits, because there, when you're building a component library, you could consider the full markup that is being generated as part of the public surface of your because that your end users are gonna, the users of your component library is gonna be using and potentially have a dependency on the output. So that's also why the structure, or even maybe if you're gonna add some custom CSS to your logic or to your app that uses a library component that has elements that have a specific set of elements, then you want to be able to match that up. So it's I've had less use for this personally, but I can definitely see, especially now that I've started using Playwright to do sort of more complex end-to-end testing for longer workflows across multiple pages, then I can definitely see the advantage here. especially also with forms and other things like that. So
Yep.
that has made a big difference as well. So yeah, it's absolutely worthwhile to have. Are you mostly, Scott? Are you mostly creating applications or libraries or sort of?
Mostly applications. Yeah, that's most of what our when you stepped away, I was saying like being consulting, I get to see different people using bUnit because we got multiple clients who are using Blazor, but then we've got some using React and Vue and Angular and stuff like that. And I kind of float around and see different usages. So yeah, definitely mostly building applications, although sometimes we're building like internal component libraries because they don't just have one Blazor app, they've got several. And they want everything to kind of look the same. So definitely some of that happening as well.
Yeah, I found that even for just a single application, I will have like some shared components that are being used multiple places, and if they have a little bit of complexity to them, I will tend to just use bUnit to test that in isolation, just to verify that they work, and then I will use Playwright to test the. I guess I'm using Playwright to actually test more of the happy path, especially like the application I'm building right now has a fairly complex multi-layers of forms. The object is sort of a full object hierarchy with multiple elements, with lists inside them, with elements and so on and so forth. And that's sort of, you can edit that in different levels and go in through different forms. And so it's not a single component that you would use bUnit to test in isolation. You could also use bUnit to test it as a whole, but then there's other things in the application that interacts with that, who's logged in and all of that. And it becomes, even though it runs a bit slower and you have to spin up the whole Blazor app, it's a Blazor server app in memory, then it becomes a bit more, it becomes worthwhile to do it with Playwright compared to using bUnit for it, even though it's way more work.
Can be a little bit flakier too, depending on.
It can be, yeah.
Short question.
Sorry, Steven.
Because we had this topic earlier about component libraries. Is there something like Storybook for Blazor, or similar tool like Storybook?
I believe we have a fellow MVP, and I'm going to butcher his name. I met him
Isn't he in Japan?
Yeah, a Japanese guy.
Yeah.
Very, very cool guy. Very. I don't want to say sweet in a condescending way, but he's
very nice guy.
He's generally super friendly and very nice to talk to. And I'm not even going to attempt saying his name, but he has well, let's just
Blazing Story is what it's called.
Yeah. Blazing Story. Let me see if I can find it here. Oh,
got it.
Go and share.
Oh yeah, I also do not try to even remotely pronounce his name.
I think he calls himself Jake Sakamoto. I can't remember.
I can't remember either. I remember talking to him at MVP Summit.
Yeah,
a little bit. But...
Yeah. He's very cool. But yeah, he has something like this, and I think he uses bUnit to test it, so we are in there in a way. But I'm not sure how much it's been picked up. But I think it's. I never have you used Storybook before for JavaScript?
Yeah, for Angular applications.
Yeah. And what is the purpose besides like having a sort of a live playground to test out components? What is the motivation?
We also have basically all of our components come via Figma design tokens. So it's super easy for UX designers, just to basically see more complex stories. So we can just write a story, which is not just a button, but maybe even a small portion of an application. And they just export the tokens into the Storybook. It just picks it up automatically, and they can see whether or not this will fit in the real life application. So even if we would have only one application and those components wouldn't be shared, I still see benefit. But it takes a bit of time to set everything up. Obviously, not only your components, the primitive components, but also maybe some smaller scenarios, which may or may not, I don't know which in variations in your application you have. It can be a bit more stuff.
Yeah, very cool.
But I like it.
Let me share that link.
Where I've seen it used as well as like when you get into large enterprises where there's thousands or tens of thousands of developers, you kind of need like internal evangelists almost, or like you need it for things. And I've even seen it at large enterprises where people have like 4 competing component libraries because historically people are not great at talking to one another, and so I think Storybook helps that evangelist side of things, because we've all been in, like when you go see some docs, like or evaluating a library, when you look at the docs and it's like, oh, these are really good. That kind of helps sell you on using that library. So
it seems like it would be good if you were to publish a Blazor component library. This would also be a very good way to sort of showcase how to use it, I guess.
Yep. And you can interact with things and like, oh, what's it look like when I switch this from primary to secondary or whatever, and you can kind of just interact with it in a UI. So as well as what Steven said with like designers and stuff like that, for them to see it, because obviously they usually aren't slinging code, at least in my experience. They're the ones slinging the divs.
Yeah. I was also just laughing at your comment before that people like the different teams will have their own internal library. It's and my Twitch show and YouTube channel is called the Not Invented Here Syndrome, or Not Invented Here Show. So I am I'm very much guilty of that. I guess there are certain kind of developers that instinctively think they can do it better than what's already out there. So I am probably guilty of that.
Yeah, I really like personally not like, even if you don't have a component library, like kind of making your own through your app, which you kind of mentioned earlier, of like having custom shared components. Like for instance, if I'm using Mudblazer or something like that, I almost never use it directly. I almost always wrap it in something else. So then it's kind of like I style it the way I want, or I like only expose the options that I want, or like it's laid out in a certain way.
So if you have a mod, I don't know, I haven't used Mudblazer, but if you had a mod input element or input component, you would have a Scott input component that just wraps that and
I actually call it that exactly. The usually I'm like I might take the name of the app or something and put like name of the app input or something, and that might also have the input and the label, so things are laid out the exact same, so you just kind of use that in spots, and all your forms look the same. As well as if you ever want to switch to something else, at least it's isolated to that component, so you don't have to worry about changing it in a million spots now. Sometimes I still,
that makes sense. Have you this is the premature optimization thing showing up again, I don't know how much you've looked into the internals of Blazor, but Steve and I have, when we building the renderer, poking around in there, we can, like, for every component you actually have, it creates a shadow basically component or component state in the renderer. So the more components you have, the more noise you're gonna, like, the more memory allocations, the more object allocations you have. I know that, and I think Steven Sanderson published a whole article a few years back on, things you want to do if you have performance concerns. Have that ever been a concern to you to do that wrapping, where you basically add an extra layer of component just to have that abstraction?
I've never experienced that. I mean, that wasn't just like, oh, I should have done virtualization because there's way too much stuff on in the browser or something like that. So I haven't personally hit that, but maybe I'm also not measuring that all the time either. I'm not like looking how much memory is getting allocated all the time, unless I notice issues.
Are you mostly doing WebAssembly or Blazor server? Well,
mostly WASM for the most part.
Okay, well then it's the user's computer. It's not memory. It doesn't matter.
I mean, Chrome's already taken a gig just for one tab. So I mean, what's
What's a few extra megs? No.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you guys
Okay.
doing mostly server?
Yeah, for the most part, I've been building 2 or 3 Blazor server apps for internal use at clients, and it's
Yep.
server fits that quite a bit better. And I
Yep.
even with .NET 9 now coming out with it's not the gray screen of death. It's being optimized quite a bit now where you have sort of but also much quicker reconnect. And one of the problems we've had with some of the apps is that people will have it open in the browser and it's working fine, but then they tap to another tab, and the browser will after a little while just put it into sleep, and then it loses connection. So there's you can't probably not prevent that because that's just how the browsers work. But what you can do is you can get that reconnect to work much better. And I don't know if they will actually lose state. They probably still lose state, but yeah, even so. But I think it works really well, and it's at least the last time I used Blazor WebAssembly, the debugging experience wasn't great. Sometimes it hit and miss if you get that to work, and so I think it's a very quick get things up and running. And if you have 10, 100 users, then it's scaling wise, it's not an issue. You could still just run it on a single instance on your favorite cloud provider or whatever you want to do.
Yeah, the development story is definitely way easier too, because you don't have to worry about like, oh, I got to hit this API and all that kind of stuff. It just you have full access to a lot more stuff. So
also a lot of security concerns, so way easier on the server side.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's basically just like all login and all of that is just handled there for you. So, yeah.
Good old PHP times.
Yeah, what's funny, like a lot of people don't think about like if your API is returning if you have like a client-side SPA app, like if your API is returning too much, people still can get access to that versus like server rendered stuff. If you return too much, like it's getting thrown away anyway. They're not going to see that stuff. But I see that at some of our clients quite a bit where it's like, oh, I'm just returning this API, and behind the scenes I was calling another API and I'll just return everything that they came back with. And it's like, well, no, like should be limiting down to just what you need, because anybody can crack open the network tab and see what's going on. So
especially if it's JSON. But
in Blazor WASM, is it possible, because I didn't use it in a very, very long time, can you just link other like real WASM files if you have already something precompiled?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yeah. Awesome. So Steve Sanderson had a demo, I think it was actually when he introduced the QuickGrid component, where he would have SQLite compiled to WASM.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Downloaded and running in the browser. And I don't think there was any particular magic to it. It's not that he had special access to do things that we couldn't do ourselves. So I think you can just call other WebAssembly modules, and you would do that by using JS interrupt to invoke out to JavaScript, and then so I don't think there is a direct access in .NET without going through JavaScript, because that would be what I think the security model around WebAssembly modules is such that you have to go through the browser APIs anyway. They can't communicate directly, as far as I know anyway. So but yeah, it should be possible. I've also seen some game engines or games built around
things
that.
like FFmpeg, which is there is a WASM port. I don't know if it's a port because it's a somewhat outdated version. But I wanted to implement that, but I wanted to implement it on Blazor server, and obviously that doesn't work that way. You just link WASM files, obviously. But stuff like that would be very interesting if you just have your Blazor client app, or even your Blazor, how do they call it? Not hybrid, auto. The auto mode, where basically, or where parts of your application is basically server-side rendered and parts of your application is client-side rendered, which enable you exactly such cool scenarios where you do certain things, heavy calculations on the client side, push them up to the server, the rest of the application is just server-side rendering.
Yeah, use your user's CPU instead of your own.
Yeah, that's how Bitcoin mining works.
Yeah.
That's
Have you done that at all? You use the auto mode, so where it switches between different
Unfortunately,
different
I
render
just
modes.
played around with it,
Hmm.
and the auto mode is more like it's cool for the initial load because still
Yeah.
everything is server side rendered, and then once your client or like your user, not client sounds always wrong, just reloads the page, then it goes to Wasm. I'm more interested in the other way that you have like islands where you can say like this is really only server side and this is only client side. But yeah,
Is that supported?
unfortunately,
No.
I'm still writing Angular apps. Hey, I don't write Blazor apps. Only in my
Yeah.
spare time.
Have you done any of that, Scott? Work with different render modes inside the same app?
primarily I've done WASM. I haven't used Auto like in production.
Mm-hmm.
I played around with it just to kind of see how it works and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Have done like the islands thing with like Razor Pages apps that need some Blazor sprinkles and stuff like that. But yeah, I heard or saw a spicy tweet from Steve Sanderson. This is probably like 9 months ago now. That was like basically we don't recommend Razor Pages anymore. You should just be using Blazor now that there's the statically server rendered option. So which kind of makes me sad because I liked Razor Pages. But that's a whole nother topic in of
I
itself.
still like them. For
Yeah.
HTML, like if you want to have email templates, I always use Razor Pages and just convert them basically via the Razor engine to HTML and have
Yep.
one client with that HTML email.
Yeah. So I think that I started looking at HTMX and created the whole HTMX Blazor integration. I guess last MVP summit, started talking to folks about it, and I was prototyping it. And one of the things, because there is already Khalid, I can't say his last name, JetBrains MVP. Very
Yeah, I know who you're
involved.
talking about. Yep.
Yeah. He has sort of I guess what's it called, tag helpers pack for Razor Pages, that makes it easier to work with HTMX. HTMX is super. It's a nice little library just for client side stuff, and if I just need to build a website with a little bit of interactivity and not a full web app experience, I would definitely look that way. And then the server side, you can use whatever server you want. So there's many different server technologies that are supported, and he has built sort of tag helpers that basically make some of that easier to work with. And I sort of started looking at it and see, well, how can we make Blazor Pages or Blazor work nice together with that? Because lots of folks in that community, in the HTMX.net community, actually prefer the Razor component model to the I guess Razor Pages, not component model, but it's like the syntax is slightly different. But so yeah, but one of the things I saw was that if you just do static rendered Blazor app, Blazor Pages, or statically rendered HTML from Blazor, the performance is not going to be the same as you get from CS HTML Razor Pages, because that's just a lot more going on, right? Essentially, whenever you get a request in, it's spinning up a full Blazor renderer, which is stateful, and keeps built out a component tree and basically sets it up so that it could be a stateful application, but obviously it's not, because you're just going to render it out once and then you're going to spit out the output and you're done. So there is a bunch of overhead. I know they're optimizing quite a bit for .NET 9 around that as well, but the performance is, yeah, it's not going to win the Fortune benchmark anytime soon.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So, but yeah, but it is a nicer model, and I do get the sentiment that if you don't have performance concerns, you can probably very well just use that, and they will make it fast over time. But that is just like the overhead of actually having to set up a renderer and build out a full virtual render tree just to convert that to HTML, when you don't even, like for statelessness, you don't need the intermediate step, but that's just how it works, right? So
Yeah. The only thing I've seen like out in the wild is that people do is that I don't know. There's trade-offs either way, but I feel like sometimes I see too many components firing off. These are WASM components, like firing off API calls and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
And so it's like we're like 4 children down, and we're like firing off an API call, and every child upstream is also firing off API calls to get some data. Whereas like MVC and Razor pages, they kind of force you to go top down. They kind of force you to get your data and kind of then make your views pretty dumb for the most part. So that's the only thing I've seen with Blazor components, that kind of like MVC and Razor pages kind of force you down that direction, whereas Blazor components, you can do whatever you want. And sometimes people are not considering like, hey, maybe I shouldn't be firing off a bunch of API calls all over the place and kind of trying to keep track of what you're doing. Now, sometimes you do want to separate those things, because maybe like you don't want to get all your data all at once, because this piece of data takes a long time to get for whatever reason, because it's from a slow source. So you want to like, yeah. So there's trade-offs no matter what, but just I see sometimes there's people have too much going on and too many components.
And
I agree.
Those components will have 100% test coverage.
Oh yeah, always.
Yeah.
No, but the thing is, it's a really good point. And for the app I'm building right now for work, I was considering like, should I, like I had this sort of complex form, and there was different part of the form I would basically pack into a component, and that part of the form, and this is based on server, so each of them can just go to the database themselves if they want to. But I can also just if we say like the root is the page that you get to, and that sort of picks the different sub components that should be shown depending on the query string parameters and all. Usually as actually driven mostly by query string parameters and by the path parameters, and that chooses what data to load and what type of form data to show. But I could pass down the let's say customer ID or company ID down to the lower, and then they would go and get the data they need specifically. I could just load at the top level and use cascading values or use just regular parameter passing. So I haven't. I think it's a sort of a. It's a depends question whether or not either which one is right? Because if you do the cascading thing, that might cause a whole bunch of components that doesn't need to re-render because of the top level sees, hey, we changed something, so we need to reload some data, but only one part of the component tree below needs to actually react to the new data. And unless it's like basically struct types, not even struct types, but that's like a list of hard-coded type strings, numbers, things like that, that the Blazor render is able to detect that this is the same component that you passed down before, so we don't need to re-render. But anything else, basically any types of custom components custom data types or elements data you might be passing down, Blazor will not be able to see that these haven't changed, as far as I can tell.
Do you know if records are the same way?
I'm fairly certain that is the case, because even though records implements I equatable by default, and the problem is that the Blazor renderer can't keep track. If you have like a 1 gigabyte record you're passing down, it can't keep that in memory just to compare to the next time something gets passed down. So they limit it to specific types that they know are not going to be problematic. But then again, when I'm saying that, I don't even know if they do that for strings.
Does it keep track of references like Angular does? At least the zoneful Angular does. The zoneless is a bit different.
There are definitely places where they can do a lot of that, but I think the most normal workaround is that if you have something where the re-renders is a problem for you in your Blazor app, you will just not decide to do the re-render. You would decide to have the data come into the component from services instead, so that they decide whether to re-render or not individually.
That's
But
go.
yeah,
I mean, it's like, and it depends, like, because you run into that problem as well as the loading problem I mentioned before, or maybe you want to load something sooner rather than waiting. So and it depends. Just I don't know. Sometimes I just see
But
too much going on.
I guess your point though is that if those users who just fire up HTTP calls to various APIs from child components all over the place, they are probably also injecting HTTP client directly into their components, which make them hard to test. So ideally, they can still do that safely what they're doing, but then you might just want to inject some sort of API service, and when you call something on that, it will queue things up to a certain, like it'll allow maximum of 10 ongoing requests or something like that, so you can control it centrally, because it potentially is a single source of especially if you have many clients, right? You have multiple clients issuing hundreds of calls to the same API, then it's going to be a scalability problem potentially.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Scott, how long do we have you?
37 more minutes. So we got a decent amount of time.
Minutes. Okay. Awesome.
How long do you guys normally go till?
Well, we go to it's free. We go to 4 p.m. UTC normally, right, Stephen? Yeah, free your time.
No, 3
5
UTC. Because right now it's 16 o'clock here, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and normally, well, it depends. That's the point.
Summertime. We would go to
Summertime,
free.
exactly. Yes. But I thought we kept everything UTC because
yeah.
it's really hard for
the short answer, Scott, is 1 more hour usually.
Yeah.
1 more hour.
Somewhere around an hour.
Yeah. One more hour or so from now on. Usually that's the time when my kids start coming home and come out and insist I do stuff with them. So that's usually my cue. And in the summertime, maybe we stop around this time because Steven's girlfriend probably wants him to go and cook dinner or something at that time. So
exactly that.
So yeah, we are flexible.
Do you want to talk like? Go for it.
No, go ahead.
Do you want to talk about like APIs for the next bUnit web query stuff, or something else y'all want to talk about?
I don't know if we have time to probably get into the get by role now.
Okay.
I think it could be we would probably want to have at least 2 hours or so otherwise it's going to be scratching a bit on the surface. I think what we had on the agenda was to go back and look at what we started on last time. Because we basically were looking through the change list for .NET 9, and it turns out that it was constructor injection that we need to support in bUnit, which Stephen already sorted in a few months ago. And then there is render modes that you can now inspect in your components during during the component. Yeah, it's just available in component. It's that services, and that it's also exposed through the component-based type. So we need a way to surface that so that you can essentially mock that during testing, or not mock it, but you can just change it so that you can test different parts of the component depending on that. And I believe that was more or less it, right? When we looked through the change list, because other than it's only internal stuff or improvements to serialization of content going over signal connection, stuff like that, but it doesn't really affect bUnit.
Stuff which is not affected in any way by us.
So Stephen, if you want to share your screen, because I think it would be great to get Scott's take, because we are essentially for supporting .NET 9, we're introducing a little bit of new API surface to bUnit, and you might actually be the one who's using bUnit the most of all of us free. so getting your input on naming of things, which is some of the hardest problems we have, that would be great.
Great, that's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah. We spent quite a bit of time already last stream just talking about it. Do you want to? Do you have the feature branch open, Stephen?
Yes, I do have the feature branch open, and I want to just get rid of our OCD.
Yeah, don't trigger my OCD.
And then we are here again. So, perfect.
Yeah.
To be honest, we are renderer info. That was the first thing. I guess we sorted that out entirely, didn't we? I think everything was clear
I guess we can go to the test. So there's Different level. Yeah. So there's a new type. Scott, have you looked at this at all?
No, I have not.
No.
That's,
Okay.
that's new to me.
So good. So we can try to rubber dog it and see if it makes sense what we've done. So do you want to go to our test component, Stephen?
Give me a second. Yes, sir.
Yep.
Yeah. So we have
actually, okay. No, you're good. Yeah. So we have in a component base now, you have a property called renderer info.
Yeah.
And that exposes a type called renderer info. And if you go to that, you might want to zoom in ever so slightly. Yeah.
Wait,
If you go to let's go to the type definition. Yeah. So you have those two properties now available to you. In its interactive and name. And name is, I think we saw there's 4 hard-coded values. I'm a bit surprised they didn't use an enum, but I guess
yes. Wait,
it would be. I would be interested to hear the reason for not doing that. If you go to, I think, what was it, source?
Yeah. Let me just
renderer
put
info
this up here. Source.net. Let me zoom. Well, let me try to zoom.
Mm-hmm.
Can I? Ooh, amazing.
Mm-hmm. And if you click on the type, it will show all the instances where it's used. Yeah. So we have basically server static, WebAssembly, and
where did I find it? Here.
No. If you go
you wanna have this
to we just see basically those are the 4 instances in the framework. WebView, I guess that's for Maui and other stuff. So those are the 4 built-in ones, and I think we got to a point where we said we wanted to make it easy to basically say I'm in server mode or in.
Yep.
Yeah. So one thing I don't really understand. So if I'm using this in my code to basically in my Blazor component, I'm trying to decide, okay, this is WebAssembly or this is server. So I'm gonna, it's an if-else kind of a situation. I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna do that, or maybe it's static. I'm not gonna try to do any interactive things, right? But like people are going to have to do string-based because I don't see any. I don't see any static like. That's not
it would be nice if this thing would be public at least, so you can,
Yeah, but that's part of this renderer itself. So we have the types. We have the types renderer render in render mode. It's like that's a static class that has static classes inside it, so you can easily compare and say if exactly. These two are the same. So now people in their components will have to say, if my renderer info dot name equals server, and they have to have the string right, or they have to use comparison, ignore, ordinal, or all of that upper lowercase. So it feels like this is sort of a semi-half-baked from Microsoft's point of view.
It could be just because of extensibility reasons. So if you want to write your
Sure.
own thing, then you are limited to whatever Microsoft is providing you, which might not be a fit. So
what they could do is they could have a default renderer info class that has 4 static properties that have the 4 instances we see here, so that you can just compare the instances, and then you didn't have to do. Then it would be not. It would be strongly typed, I guess, is what I'm saying. But
I assume anyway, a lot of people are just more interested in this flag.
Interactive, yeah. You're probably right, though. That's probably is interactive. That is important. Otherwise,
so I can imagine, if you're, especially as a component library author, and you have something which needs interactivity, you may, at least, you cannot throw an exception. Well, you could throw an exception or do something.
Yeah, I think if it's only static, that's false in their code at least, and that would just mean that your event handlers, on-click event handlers doesn't work. Anyway, the only event handler that does work is the onSubmit for forms.
For enhanced form navigation,
yeah.
But at least you could throw something or indicate something that you should be using interactive mode. So this should work from a component author's point of view.
Oh
But
yeah,
that's just
if your
one scenario
component
I can
doesn't
come up with.
support, if your
Yeah.
component doesn't support static mode,
Yeah.
right, then you would throw an exception. Otherwise, you would just gracefully do something else. And anyway, if you go back to the
yes.
code,
Exactly.
So
especially here, we were here, huh? That this is fine.
yeah. So I believe I think go to our test case, just so we can sort of showcase what we are thinking here. So we are thinking of having, so on the test context, we have the renderer property, which is just representing the renderer. I don't think a lot of people are really using that at all.
I've never seen that used in the wild,
no.
for what it's worth.
No, and that was why I was thinking it might be. So obviously we have the renderer, and then we had a method on there called set renderer info. That is a renderer info property that is protected internal on the base renderer that we in Blazor that we are inheriting from. That gives us whatever the renderer is, and we will set our own by default. But you have to basically turn it into a method. We can't just have it as a property. But here people are able to pass in the renderer info type and say, this is the renderer type I want. Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
But I'm not sure if the set renderer info should be on
the test
the
context.
renderer on the test context.
Well, yeah.
Instead.
We should probably stick to our pattern, have almost everything exposed via the test context. I mean, but then again, this is such a
niche thing.
Use.
Yeah.
I think so. The problem, I mean, for sure, what is missing right now? I mean, we can release this and whatnot, but for sure, we should provide documentation because this is completely missing at the moment.
So yeah, but at the end of the day, so actually, if you scroll down the next, because I don't mind it as much, because what we do have is we have a component here on the test renderer info component, and it tries to access. If you go into that, I don't know if it's a built-in component or
no, that's ours. This one here.
Oh yeah,
Wait.
it's just further down, I believe, right? Yeah.
So
this is basically just a component that tries to access the renderer info property on component base, and if that is null, it will component base will throw an exception. So if the renderer, which is the bUnit renderer, hasn't specified a renderer info by default, which all the built-in renderers do, then it will throw. So, but what we have done is we will capture that and package that up as a missing renderer info exception, where we give people an exception back saying this is what you need to do to, work around.
Make it work.
So I prefer that we need to write documentation as well, but I prefer that way of communicating with the user, so they can just run the test and it'll blow up and they will read the error message and they will be told what to do with an example and everything. So I think that's good enough. But I even with that, I'm still wondering if we should. We put it differently. We need to have that functionality on the renderer because that's where we set it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So the question is, do we want to expose that directly on the test context as well? Yeah. So instead of having to go,
we have also this, and we have this. So yes, it would make sense. This is nothing else than just calling the renderer display components. So in theory, just sticking to our own way of exposing API, we should have it there. Even
and
though
also
I
just
feel
thinking,
this is really, really niche.
Yeah, I'm also thinking a bit ahead. So I can't remember for V2, do we even expose the renderer through the test context at that stage? We do that.
I think so. Yes.
Yeah.
Didn't change much there. We just merged test context base and test context, and I do think the only change we made to the renderer is we are not exposing it as an interface anymore, because we thought this abstraction isn't useful.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
You seem hesitant to put it on the test context.
It's just not.
It feels noise and duplication.
Yeah, and I'm to some extent, well, dispose components, and that has some issues in and of itself with the way it works, right? If I remember correctly, so it there's some edge cases we weren't able to support.
Well,
Like
we
with
fixed it for
async-
V2 at least.
That's right. Yeah, because
The renderer exposes something for us we will use in V2 onwards, or .NET 8 onwards, let's say it like that.
it was because like, so if you have components and you want to test that dispose happens at the right time or whatever, you would, but you could call dispose components, and then after the method returns any component that you had, for example, pulled out with find components previously, you could go and do something with them, and if they would be disposed at that point. But the problem was that if it was an async disposable component, async disposable components doesn't happen synchronously. They just happen in the background, and there's no way for us to observe that they are done with that in the earlier version. So you would have to basically insert custom delays or whatever you needed to do. So I'm not sure, but I think it's fine that it's on the renderer, and because we have the exception message that will guide people to the right spot.
And what's it's a bit of a shitty reason, but it's easier to add this later on the test context rather than taking it out, because that would be API breaking changes. So it's a shitty reason. I do agree. Yeah, I know, but well.
I feel like it's, 9 out of 10 and probably more Blazor developers probably aren't going to be doing this because they're not creating reusable components across different things, would be my guess, but I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
No, I
probably
really
going to
think
be
the users are Matt, Blazor, and friends.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, Stephen, I don't know how I am leveled microphone wise versus Scott, but you are definitely a bit lower than Scott.
I'm lower.
Or Scott is a bit higher. Yeah.
Interesting, because we made this check before. Let me.
Oh, do you want me to turn down my gain?
No,
I'm not sure if
I make mine higher. Wait.
We can do a poll in the chat. Who's more level? Is it Scott or me, or is it Steven or me?
Oh yeah, that would be interesting. And then I can also do a very close and do a.
Yeah.
Let's do some.
Shove the microphone in your mouth. Basically. Yeah.
Well, I can see the differences that you have yours, Scott, very close to your mouth, and Steven is a bit on the side.
Yeah, that's maybe the main issue, but I don't. So wait.
I just want to highlight this comment here. That's
yeah, of course. This was of course you highlighted.
You just had to say Eagle is perfect, didn't you?
Yeah.
Because you paid people beforehand. That's super unfair.
Thanks, Mom.
Wait. So
I'm pretty certain I'm not related to Skull, but yeah.
Wait. So anyhow, I hope I can just talk louder. I can just do that.
Yeah.
Okay. I dropped mine a little bit. Is that better?
I think you are about the same level now, you and Steven.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, right, amazing.
Cool. Scott is fine.
Wait. It bothers me. I also want to be on number 1. Wait. Damn it, where's my input? Here's my input. So now I'm louder for sure. So let's go.
Awesome.
Glad we got that figured out like an hour and a half into the stream or whatever.
Yeah.
That's what we do.
So you had enough time. So we stick to this, don't we?
Yeah.
So we will not expose this via the test context. Is this the agreement? Okay, perfect.
Yeah, I think the other option, I think we discussed that a little bit last time, was that we make it easier for people to do the right thing in terms of, because now they would have to actually new up a renderer info object themselves and pass in the right string, server, capital S, and all of that, right? So we could have, set renderer info server, set renderer info,
it's a C class. You could just have an extension method.
Yeah, exactly. It's just an extension method, but that would, do the right thing. And then obviously leave open keep that method we have there, because if people want to have their, Mod Blazor server render mode I don't know if they're able to override that, but in theory they could be. Then they have that option if somebody's creating a custom renderer. But I don't know if they would be using bUnit in that case. Anyway, I don't know if that makes sense, or it's again something we add if people ask for it, because it's something users can also do themselves through extension methods. So yeah, no, actually, probably let's keep it simple.
Yeah, and I feel like you're trying to fix something like a design decision Microsoft made a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Yes. So that is, I think we had 2 tests for that, but then we started looking at, I guess,
The assigned renderer mode. How was it called?
Yeah. Oh yeah. So again, I think we had a demo app running last time where we.
Yes. It's good that you use the past tense because I deleted it.
Yeah. So I think our understanding, I think we confirmed that yesterday. So if we have at the top level a renderer, a component that has render mode, I don't know, server, then if they don't explicitly set something else lower, the child components themselves with the add render attribute, then they inherit the render mode from the parent, right? So we want to be able to, so if you have a child component in your component test, and that child component goes and looks at the whatever renderer info, they will get what the parent said. And I think we have a bunch of different tests that tested if not overriding, or if they're changing the time.
Yeah, exactly. We have all 4 invariations of that. Like we have to,
Classic
true,
Boolean
true,
SQL.
true, false, false, true, and false, false.
Yeah.
In some way or another. And we now, that's the only thing. Where did we left? So we wanted to check something else. It was also something about strings, and I guess it was about this string. Like you can, you can do this, like render, or was it like this one? We were stuck here.
That was the thing we got to last time, because you can. Yeah. So at the root level, we have the render mode directive. On a not root level, but on a component, we have that add render mode directive. But you can also add that not to an element. That doesn't make sense. But you would see that if you go to a file new Blazor app, you will see the router, the default router component will have the add render mode set, and the head outlet I think has render mode set as well by default.
I think so.
That would be on app.cs or app.razor. Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
I guess you have to in the template.
I think you have to choose some interactive, because by default it's going to be static.
Yeah. Interactive.
Oh, you did you say that? Oh, global? Yeah. Oh, you probably want to have it global instead of.
I do want to have it global. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Let's go. Hello World 3.
Yeah, they keep coming. App.razor.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This one.
Yeah, and I can't remember what was it that we were trying to figure out there last time.
What is import map? It's new.
I
never saw that. Is this something we have to take care of, or we should, have at least a look afterwards?
Import map. No, I
never saw that, and I'm pretty certain in .NET 8 that was the thing.
So I tried going and let's see the description of it. Represent an element that defines an import map for module scripts in an application. Oh, so if you have
JS modules?
Jump in, Scott. Save us if you know what's going on here.
I was just I haven't seen that before, so.
But I know the assets
for the map assets, for map static assets, given this one here.
Yeah, no, I think it must be something else, because those, I think the add assets thing we have there, that will automatically do cache busting on the URLs. If you try to run that app, you will probably see that they have
Yeah, you have this version string at the end.
Yeah, the map static assets, right? So I'm wondering what that other thing does. But again, I think it's a component, and I don't think it changes things for.
You want to show you something? Oh god.
I think you can, if you have focus down there, you can zoom in on that.
I try. It just makes my browser bigger.
Okay. I guess not.
Can I somehow? I have no idea.
Oh, you probably have to go into release mode. I'm guessing.
Yeah. What publish? Does this already work in?
Might even have to be. It might be a published step, actually. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let's reload.
Yeah, you can see
there's
some
no query parameters, so I thought there's some.
No,
I mean,
but you can see they add that to the so it's not a query parameter. It's simply they changes the name. They change the name of the CSS and JavaScript static assets.
I'm sorry, that's that small, but yeah. Given that this thing is anyway in the app browser, probably it's not critical.
No, I don't think it's something that we need to deal with.
Good. Let's do
it
the
creates a script. So Scott has an explanation. We can also just look in the chat. So it creates a script block for import maps in F12. So
I cannot click on the link, but I could show it to everyone.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Oh,
okay.
Yeah. So,
but
okay.
Maybe we can check this out later. Thanks God for the heads up. I will type this in letter by letter after the stream. But where were we? Render mode. This one. Because this you can do with arbitrary components down in your render tree.
Yeah, so I think the challenge is that if you have a parent component and then you have two child components, and one child component has one render mode specified in line with the render mode directive as is read here, and then another one has something else. And I guess, for example, in this particular case, you actually have it implicitly. You have it actually implicitly here because import map has static render mode because it's not defined. So it'll just be static render mode there.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if we can even make that work. So should we try to set up that test? Just create a test component that does use the add render mode and then have a parent component that has two child components that have different render modes, and then if we go into each of the child components, they should.
Well, we can even reuse those two.
Yeah, I think we can reuse that. So assigned render mode. What was the deal with that versus? So
isn't that? Let me check the test again. Maybe that's why we have them. Let me move this.
Oh yeah, we have assigned render mode.
There's nothing because we never assigned it. How did we assign it though? It's done via just render mode. And I guess it's at the end, in the end, it should be the same behavior, whether or not the component sets it or the parent component sets it for the child. What's assigned render mode returns now? Yeah, okay.
So that is using the the static types of static instances. So, yeah.
We can rename things later. Oh no, I'm very sorry. And I was even wait, here render modes. I want to have a new component. I want to have a child like this, the same. Basically, I want to have this without the render mode. That's all I want. I just don't want to set the render mode explicitly for the child.
Yeah, I think that would turn the I component render mode type. The assigned render mode would return that. So I think you should be able to go to, if you go to component base, you should be able to see that and find assigned render mode. Yeah, it is, there we have it, yeah. So it will find the assigned render mode from the renderer handler. And
Well, that
But
in
so
both
okay,
cases it should behave the same, not?
I would think so. So this is something like should we provide users with an option? So similar to what I think we have there's two different ways of looking at that. There's the set renderer info, which
Yeah.
sets that sort of represents what the renderer the actual renderer that is currently running supports. So that's sort of I guess it's independent of what the component we're looking at. This is just what is the renderer capable of doing? Right? Is it a server renderer? Is it a WebAssembly renderer? Is it static renderer? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm not sure, to Scott's point, why you would want to look at that necessarily, because that tells you about the runtime that your component is currently inside. Whereas assigned render mode might
real deal.
I'm wondering what's because the iComponent render mode was something that was introduced in .NET 8, I want to say, with the whole the auto and the weather
And SSR
various-
and whatnot.
yeah. Whereas renderer info is something in .NET 9. Now,
Yeah.
but so I'm okay. So the question I'm getting to, bear with me, is the assigned render mode that is sitting on component base, and it's coming from the renderer handler.render mode. And where is, if you go to that again, that is coming from the renderer.getComponent render mode. If you go into that method, and go further down. I'm starting to get.
Oh, look at this guy.
Okay, yeah.
Isn't
Okay,
that
so
what we did?
we did some work around that. So I guess when you go and do the add sign, add render mode directive, not on a component inside a component, but not on a
but the parent
component declaration.
dictates it for the child.
Yeah, up next to the add page directive or whatever you're using. Then that gets turned into an attribute that is added to the type, and thus we can determine what the render mode is. Now the question was, I think now I'm sort of getting caught up to where we were last Friday. The question was, if we have just a regular old component with no add render mode on it, but that includes in its markup two components or one component underneath it that has the add render mode directive in the component. So
Like something like that,
I think,
where you said it explicitly, huh?
Yeah. How can we surface whatever is set here to the user? And how does that? How is that made visible? Does it get added to the? I think it got added to the render tree, right?
Yeah.
And oh, you want to do render mode.interactive server? I believe it's a static type that you have to have a static include for.
Is that the case? I will close this one. This was anyway just wrong.
Yeah. No. So that's the render mode type, which is static.
Where are the global? But here are no global usings.
No, if you go into imports and expand that, you have the static. That's so.
Yeah,
that's
I just was exactly looking only for this line.
Yeah.
Doop doop doop. Amazing.
Yeah. Okay.
And basically, you want to say something like, we have another child, or let's even call it some other child, where you set a different render mode. Did I understand you correctly?
I guess the first problem to solve is what if, so the parent component we are in right now, the component that declares those two, it has whatever render mode, or it might just be null, right? Or it might be whatever defaults it have. It's probably going to be null. But if you render that component now with bUnit, and you go into some child, and I think we have some test components that will look at the the declared render mode and output them.
You mean the assigned render mode?
Yeah, the assigned. Yeah, sorry, assigned render mode. Then
yeah, unfortunately, it's only. Oh. But they set this themselves, so that's not really helpful. We have to create new ones without this attribute. This attribute will screw us over.
Yeah, exactly. Most likely. And you have to do the whole if, I guess, .NET 9, no, .NET 8 or later.
True. Thank you for, well, part of it was true.
So this is yeah. And if oh, you need to have an @ sign up on top.
Thank you. I was like, why is it not working?
Yeah.
So here, assigned render mode.
Wait, was that even available? No, it's only in .NET 9. Assigned render mode shows up. So yeah, we want to do .NET 9.
Let me check something. You're right.
Yeah. So the render modes type does exist before, but
wasn't exposed.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so naming is hard and stuff. I don't think I can just.
Yeah, but just do the same one, right?
Yeah, exactly. Now, we just want to have a look at the markup anyway.
Yeah.
So
to see if it's even actually, if you start by building, if you just build the thing and expect the generated C# code from the Razor files, let's see what they actually do in terms of building a DOM tree, or not DOM tree, like what is generated.
Hey guys, I'm gonna drop off. I've got a work meeting, but yeah, thanks for the invite, and yeah, I think I'll be around next week too, and hope maybe I'll bring some like bUnit web query stuff and start kind of working towards some of that stuff. So
yeah, absolutely. We can schedule some time for going a bit deep and having a discussion on API and other things. It's always good to have.
Although .NET 9 drops next week, so maybe we want to focus on that. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. So we are .NET 9 ready. We just need to add support for this, but again, probably not a lot of people will need that off the get-go anyway. So yeah, but absolutely great having you, Scott. See you around, and have a good weekend.
Yep. You too. See y'all later.
Bye.
Bye.
Yeah, it's compiling. It's compiling. Like, it should be here, and oftentimes it's updating. Come on, it should be here, I think, but I can also.
No, it's called SomeChild. So you want to find the word SomeChild.
It's render modes because it's the render modes folder. It takes always the folder into account. You see, interactive. But you are maybe right. Wait, where is that thing? The SomeChild. God, I'm bad. Here. Oh God, I pressed too many buttons. So it is in render modes. So I would, because those two are also render modes, I would expect that thing is in render modes as well. And I use .NET 9. It's the source generator. And I also can I just say open in Finder and then what? I doubt.
Are you sure the solution is actually building successfully?
Yeah, I mean, there's some warnings for apparent reasons. I do not know why, but it is successful.
The secret hidden warnings.
Yeah, IDE doesn't want to tell me like what's going on. No.
Oh, it's like the target framework. We're using and we're supporting an unsupported type.
Please pay us $1 per warning message. The in the worst case, let's do this. Emit compile.
I think it's set to false. Just line 13, so that's why it's not showing up.
But I thought even the in-memory ones show up here.
I guess
I thought that's the whole reason, but no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Okay, so let's close this. So the child, for obvious reasons, does not have any attribute because we never specified any attribute. The interesting bit is more the parent, And I can remove this here for the time being, and then we have
Well,
some.
yes and no. I want to see in the child as well what it
Yeah.
does. So,
But here's
so
the
that
interesting
is-
bit.
It's declaring a global __ render mode, so it's a variable, and it's assigning that to, well, the type. Where is it?
Invert to
Where's that
server.
being used though? So
Here. And
Oh,
there's a
add
specific.
component
Oh
render.
yeah, we were there last week. I can't remember this bit. That there is, and that's why we do this. Add component render. That's why we, I guess, build part of the code so we can get out exactly that attribute. Oh, it's not even an attribute. It is not an attribute, by the way.
well,
that
no,
thing.
but I guess it's add component to build the add component render mode. Well, that means probably that they're adding something to the render tree, which we can go and inspect. So when people call, get my render mode for this component, we can go and actually find that render mode for that component.
So yeah,
by
they put it
get
for sure
curly
in the
render.
frames.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah. I guess the point is, if you go back to the Blazor renderer, and let me give us a bit more working space, maybe here.
You mean our renderer, or
Yeah,
this
our
bit
renderer.
here?
So we have get component renderer mode, which is in test renderer. Yeah. So we try to get the renderer mode out, and if it's specified as an attribute, that's probably what will work. Otherwise, we go up the component get component state, but we could also in here, if we do because in here you can say get what's it called, get frame.
Wait, before
get
we change something,
Yeah.
I do think that the test will already pass. There is absolutely no difference between our two tests right now. So, some child. These two, well, wait, no, not this one, but almost this one. This one and the component with, that's absolutely the same. You just declare it all the time, and here we do it selectively. But those two, like explicitly what we set up here, should behave 100% the same. Observably. Observably.
No.
So if I go to some child, the render mode is also in here. It would be like that. I don't say it's the same, but it would be like setting this one to the server render mode.
I don't think. Let's write a test. So if you go
Yeah.
back to our test case,
Exactly. Before we fiddle around with stuff, and I
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
renderer info test. I'm not even sure how I call. No,
I
renderer?
think render mode test.
Thank you. Too much
There you
renders.
go.
Okay,
Yeah.
so let's naming is hard. Public void test 007.
Well, that's why we call them test normal.
Yeah, exactly. So I will take the render component.
Just do some, I guess.
Yeah. I would just
Yeah.
take the parents.
So
I just want to
parent,
check what is coming
yeah.
out there. I
And
don't want
to just do markup matches
Exactly. Exactly.
empty string. Yeah, just have it break.
Okay.
Yeah.
And now let's build
and
that thing.
if all the tests passed, we just ship it. Right. Oh, we do expect a failure. Can
Yeah,
you
exactly.
pop up?
Oh, it's
can you pop
empty.
up the output? Yeah. So that's what I expected.
Can I?
So in Visual Studio, you can sort of show the
That-
well.
Oh, damn it.
Yeah. So actually, in Visual Studio, you can get it to show like the text part of the whatever it's called. I don't know. The output there, right? You can
This
have
one
that. The full output window. That's like a Control L or something. That'll just show that as a tab in next to your other things.
No,
Doesn't
but,
matter. I think
maybe
we
keep
get the
this
gist
window.
here. We didn't see the render mode. So I
Yeah.
think what's going on here is when you have a component that has the add render mode directive at the top, what gets generated, if you go look at the generated markup, is that it adds the attribute, right? And in the test renderer code, if you go into that, there we go. You can probably actually put a breakpoint in here and just debug that test. So put a breakpoint in line. Yeah, well, that's fine. Just debug.
Yeah, probably we will see that there's. So we will come here, hopefully. So
yeah, because we are trying to access.
Wait. This is some child. Okay, that we are not interested in that, right?
Yeah.
Well,
and there's no render mode attribute. That's null. And that's because the attribute is not added because you are not. Attributes can only be. They only added at compile time. Now, if you let me see if I can move us over here instead. So before you step out of that method, instead, do you have an interactive window?
Yeah.
So can you go and call? Can you go and do that? We have a method called get current render tree frames. In the or you don't have any intelligence here. Do you have do we have an inspect a watch?
Yeah, that is not. Wait, this. If I do the get type, what does it do? Well, obviously nothing. Yeah, okay, that works at least. Fair enough.
I can't. Yeah.
Spotlight search. Well, no, but get.
It's called get current. I think get current. Yeah. Do that and pass in the name of, well, so you are in the context of that component you're in right now. Yeah.
But
I think there is an overload that takes the get component. Oh, scroll. You have component state. Scroll up a bit. Further down, rather the other way. The other up. So you want to do a get. Component state, and you can just do component, and that gives you.
Hey, why can't I do that? Now I have to do this. Okay, now I can do not this.
You can do get component state dot component ID.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Okay. So in Visual Studio, I would be able to basically just have that as a watch the output of get current render tree frames of T component ID and be able to navigate that. I guess.
I can add it as a watch here. New watch.
Oh no! It looks like you already have it there, right?
Where? I can't see it. Here, this one.
I saw it. Yeah, no, the result render tree frames. They're
also in here.
No. Back out. Right there. You're hovering. No. Oh, up. Your mouse. One up. That is the result. Yeah. So why is that empty? Oh, that doesn't make sense. Now, what I was expecting was that we should be able to say, give me the render tree frames of this component, and render tree would contain. Yeah, so if you go back to the decompiled or the compiled component that you have, where you could see it calls a method called, what was it? Add component render mode. I expect there to be a render frame in there that has a render mode, which is the one we want to return. So to be able to get that, we would need to
here he sets
component frame flag fields, append component render mode. I guess render tree frame type component render mode, that should be something we would look for. Now, if we I guess that's two options. Well, okay, so parent component state.
will
Well, that would just call itself recursively.
recursively.
And,
Yes. And because no
Yeah.
one sets the render mode as an attribute, this will also be.
But what
nothing.
actually what we can do is if you just stop the debugging session, and then go up a bit and just say get component state and assign that to before you do parent component state, just do maybe below the if else. Yeah. Component state, and passing component, and then you can change the line below line 260 to just do component state, the parent component state. Yeah. Anyway, before we get to that, line 259, do component state dot. I think there is something called render frames, current render frames.
At least not publicly.
Oh,
available.
it's not public. Okay, well, so let's try to get the render frames out and so that would be get current render tree frames for the component. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What's it complaining about?
We are not using it.
Oh, well.
I
It's
don't care.
because you're in release mode, you want to switch over, I guess. Yeah. All right, so try running the same test again.
Oh, by the way, this should also work if you have a parent-child-grandchild relationship.
Yeah. All right, let me just, so Scott asking, shouldn't it be net zero or no, we want to do net zero or later, basically. We want to have, because they're not going to take it out, and we want to, if when bUnit targets .NET 10, we want to
No, well, I guess what he meant was a test, because I added net 8 in the test component.
Oh,
Or
I see.
I think this one here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I think
Yeah.
this one.
Okay.
where
Sorry
you
about that.
screwed
Yeah,
up
yeah.
royally.
Yeah. We're not good at following the comments. All right. How is that debugging going? Do we have a watch
It's-
window we can?
We are pending. Wherever it's pending right now.
It's
I'm not sure what it's doing.
Oh, it's building
ready
probably in
with- No, it's no, but normally build you would see down here. And it's ready. It's finished building all the things. I know I will start this again. What happens. Let's see. Build succeeded, initialize the okay, now don't ask me what.
Okay. So we have
Doesn't
frames
matter.
now. Let's try to expand that.
I didn't wanna. How is it? How can I get it back? Oh no. Oh no. Here. Damn it. Debug is here. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess this one we don't need right now. We wanna have this one, huh?
We can also close the.
So frames is
stack.
empty.
Why is it empty now?
We can hide threads and let's put this a bit here. So yeah, it's empty. And we are some child. Well, are we already rendered? I think so, huh? We shouldn't.
No, maybe this
No,
is.
we are process passing pending render, so we are not done.
But still. I am wondering.
Now we have the parent. Obviously, the parent has render tree frames.
Yeah.
Also,
Oh, wait.
obviously, this one.
Yeah. Okay, try to go in under that.
Some child. I'm not really sure what I have to look out for to see that attribute.
No. Sorry, scroll up again. You wanna scroll high up. because a render tree frame is the start of the component, but there might be frames below that have.
Well, wait,
Oh,
there are 5 frames, and this
yeah.
is then the end. No, there's nothing inside.
no. Okay, so what if you call? So now we got up to the parent.
Yes.
But that had frames. The child clearly needs to have frames as well.
Interestingly enough, yes, but didn't. At least but I mean, we are.
What
wait,
if you
wait,
go?
wait,
What
wait,
if you
wait.
go? Go ahead. Sorry.
What are we really doing here? Like, what state are we looking at? Current render tree get frames. No.
Yeah.
Range. Let's assume that it should be the latest and greatest version. Yeah, if I do it once more, I should be in the bUnit root component.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're only getting the render frames for the particular component. So you wanna.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I guess.
Oh, who am I now? Now I'm the root component. There was a fragment container. And now I'm at the child again. So.
Yeah, the second child.
But why is the second child
children.
coming now? The order is odd to me.
It's because we are. If you look at the stack, it's get render mode, but then when you go back, we go up the tree. So so now if you do next again, it will.
Okay.
We will get back into there. Now we go to the some parent, and then we go to
again.
root.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Now, I was expecting there to be a.
Interesting.
I guess, can you go to HTML analyzer?
How do we
Put a
call it?
breakpoint in there. HTML analyzer.
It's really,
There you go.
It's really called like
Yeah.
that. Okay.
And then get
Some way.
HTML. That's basically put a breakpoint in there.
Okay.
And run the test again, and just step out of, or remove the breakpoint in the other place. Yeah, just remove that breakpoint and continue. Now I wanna, if you go further down, and basically step over inside of.
The frames to the component.
No, if you scroll up, sorry. We want to inspect that. I just want to see here. Yeah, we have the render frame dictionary, which is something that we built up before we call that method, and it has render frames for all the components. So now, if we go and find one of the child components in there, it's probably going to be not that one. It's going to be 3 or 4, I think. So yeah,
Sorry,
I don't know if you
Chris,
want to do that in your debug window instead, so you don't have to not hit the wrong keys.
True, but now it's too late.
Yeah.
There's an assigned render mode. That's good. There's a text at least.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what I would expect. Yes.
But it's only.
That's all.
Yeah. Now I am wondering.
What does a parent have here? It opens exactly those 2 components, and there's absolutely, as expected, no trace of that at the add render mode directive anymore.
There is the render tree frame, the second one, or the first one, I guess.
You are absolutely right.
Interactive attribute name. So if you scroll down, I think the attribute. So this is a struct that has, it's like a binary map over a piece of memory, or memory map over. Or the struct is a map over a memory, and so multiple properties will have on that struct will have the same value because they're just they're quite optimized. But I think there's going to be one called render mode. One of the properties can be called something with render mode. Oh, that was something component render mode higher up.
Frame type.
Yeah, frame type. No, so higher up, component render mode. I believe I saw something along those lines. Component render mode. Yeah, I'm gonna move us. Yeah, so component render mode field. If you expand that, pre-render true, component rendered. Yeah, oh, okay, component type, component. Yeah, so these are just because and then we have component render mode as well. What? So let's see. What is that type? It's. Let's see. It's render tree frame, right?
Mm-hmm.
Render tree frame. Let's just have a look here. If you go to, yeah, can you go to source.net or there? That's also great. You know, you're good. You're good. Let's go down because here you can see this is basically the layout for the full thing, and they have different, you know. But if you go down and find that's usually going to be some comments for the So that has field offset.
Frame type property equals gets the specified. Otherwise, the value is undefined.
Yeah. So frame type. So what we want to do is, I guess we want to search. But was this on? So what component is this for? If you go back to the debugger. So for the frames, if you expand frame collection, and take, was it number 2? And
this one, huh?
I
this
think
is what we're setting, yeah.
Yeah, but I'm wondering component ID 0. So no, that's I'm just wondering what. The set of render tree frames we have there, which component do they belong to? I think you've pinned one of the arguments. I'm gonna jump us over. Yeah, why not? Up here.
Does it work if I do this? Because yeah, now yeah, perfect. To be honest, where am I right now? So this is this. So for sure, this one is the child, huh?
Are you sure?
Child. Key 3 sounds like the component ID, so I would assume yes.
Yeah, it is. It is the component ID.
So I would assume this is some parent.
Mm-hmm.
And if we look at I pinned the component render mode, obviously.
Yeah, you pinned that one, so that's why it's not showing. Because that's going to be different.
No, you're right. This is already some child. Okay, I was wrong.
So that is some child. No, yes, components.
Yes, components, some child.
Yeah, components, some child. Okay, so some child, does that have the render mode specified there?
No.
Invalid operational sections. This is what we saw before. If it's not set, you get this one. So it's not specified on the child?
But you it's because you are on that specific frame. So there's going to be other frames on that frame set. So this is all of these properties are for a single frame, right? So if you take a frame, if you take I don't know, maybe frame number 1, or that it seems to, so frame number 1 has the component render mode. So the interesting thing here is if you collapse this again, right?
Yeah.
This set of frames for component number 2, I guess, component ID number 2. Or was it component number 3? We were just inside.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So here, when we were in that other method, we were in the get render mode for component, right?
Mm-hmm.
the render tree, the array range render tree frames was empty, right? If you expand
Yes.
that, yeah. But here it's not.
Yes. Is it? But it's interesting. So we are here.
The problem is we are at the point after, right now we are at the point after the renderer, right
It's
after.
done.
Yeah, so,
We are in
And
update
the-
async, update display async, so we're done.
okay. So yeah, before we do anything else, go back to your sample application you just created and try to just see if we actually have that code in our application.
Wait, I cannot follow
Right.
you. What do you mean?
I guess what I'm trying to say, I want to see, because we shouldn't be able to, like, it seems like the information, the iComponent render mode only shows up after the render, which means that we can't do what we're doing in our test where we try to output stuff based on that. See what I mean? So I want to make sure that if we are in production in a Blazor app and we have that scenario where we say render mode something else, that it actually, essentially that information of the render mode is visible. Probably not auto. I'm not sure if that will work, but and now I think the challenge is that I think the challenge is that app.razor sets the render mode on the route which is used to render that out. So we probably want to put something in here. So not head outlet. You probably want to undo
Yeah, it
that
doesn't
thing you
matter.
did
I
with
just
head
want to remove it everywhere.
well, you could also just add a component here next to routes. So keep it as it is originally out of the box. Undo your changes there, but then add, just add a component here. The some child component, just one of them, I guess, is good enough. And
Damn it. Damn
what's
it.
you doing?
I don't have to do this. I
Okay,
thought I
yeah.
outsmart my IDE.
No, yeah. And then go in and in some child and do the exactly. I guess just
I could also debug, but let's do it like that.
yeah.
Not only it blows up.
Well, let's look at the warning that we are getting.
I can make it a bit bigger. Why is this not going big, you know? I mean, this one doesn't show much right now. But at least we see interactive server render mode. That is
Twice.
good.
Why are we seeing it twice?
Oh yeah, we see it. No, because I'm an idiot, that's why.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, I sorry, I didn't mean that you were an idiot. I was just I was accepting the reason for it too. So you probably just want to go and inspect the
markup.
because it's gotta be inspect the markup. I know you can zoom in there. At least I can on my
Focus. So now it's focus. I know it
you
works.
would want. Yeah, you would have a p tag.
Wait,
Oh, so we see it
try
now.
something. Oh, really? Yeah.
Well, okay.
But anyway, let me try this. Hopefully here I can zoom. Are you kidding me? Why can't I zoom? Even Firefox doesn't let me. Okay, yeah. We have to work with that right now.
Oh, is that an ad?
What? Sorry.
Did you say that was an ad?
No, we have to work with this because I cannot zoom. I have no. 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 Yeah, I have no idea how to zoom. If someone knows on Mac how to zoom in developer tools, I'm battling my operating system. But it's written
So,
interactive server, and I mean we can see it in big here, so it's not so
well,
important.
the interesting thing is, I know why it's working. So if you go to, let me just send a link in private chat to you. You can open that up. So, unfortunately, that's a good reason why it works, and it doesn't work for us. If you scroll down, so this is the Blazor server renderer, and if you find get renderer info, or no, sorry, get component render info. Yeah.
Get
Sorry,
component render mode, you mean?
Yeah. You, yeah.
Ah.
And
okay,
they
that's
just
easy.
hard coded, so that's why it works for them, but not for us.
Okay. They make it smart because it's just switches for them. But we can do the same as we did before. We can just offer something for the user. The problem is that it doesn't blow up in his face, like it did before. You know what I mean? So we could still offer something like that where the user can explicitly set
Come
how
on,
the
camera.
render.
Here we go. Yeah.
Oh, nice. That was interesting.
Yeah. Just to- yeah.
Yeah, we could do something like that, but my problem with that is that if you don't set it, it just silently runs your test without an exception. And I don't want to set this because that would break a lot of tests, or it breaks the
So
default behavior.
yeah. Well, so it's fine in a sense where my problem is here that the user might be testing component like we have the some parent component, and in there you declared render modes for your child components, right? And I might want to write a test that verifies that. Now, the information is there, but it's only there after the render.
Yeah.
Now, in production, and that's
You
I
don't
think that's the
care.
biggest problem. The problem is that in production, the thing actually works. So you can go and get the render mode assigned from the ad. Well, I'm not sure you actually can, right? Because it's just hard coded, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, in
Right.
production, you switch the renderer. That's how it works.
Yeah, and then that's and the decision of which renderer to switch to is based on
That's an
things you
interesting
do
question.
after the fact, right?
But who
yeah,
decides
I-
that? I mean, someone has to switch that out for you. If you say, for example, auto. I mean, auto. No, auto is a bad example.
Well, no, I
SS
think auto is the absolute correct example. Right.
Well, there's a bit easy because you just, you basically have a WebAssembly thing then running. So, so you really have remote versus client. But if you have SSR versus interactive server, that's a bit trickier, to be honest. How do they decide it in this case?
I think what they do is that if you set it to auto, it will start by rendering on the server, and then it will inspect the render tree after it's done rendering initially on the server and see, I have a bunch of components here that want to do auto, which means they can also do WebAssembly, and then it'll do the things after the initial render. So it's like after the fact scenario. Because I just looked at the WebAssembly renderer, and that also just hard codes the render mode.
Exactly, because auto is like, you have to refresh and then it's already in your cache. So you can really just switch out the renderer. Like the party who renders is entirely different in auto after the reload of the page. But on SSR versus interactivity, which you can, switch, you can switch part of the component. Like, for example, our head outlet could be static because we never ever change the title for apparent reasons. But the body is interactive server, and I'm interested how they figure this out. They have to figure this out.
Yes, but I know, as we can see, it's represented in the render tree after the render is complete.
But how do they? So they switch then the renderer on component base. So if our case, let's go back to our case here. exactly this one. So imagine now this, I do now the stupid shit. This might be easy. We are static server-side rendering. We just, push this to the client. Okay, fair enough. That might be easy. But this one, where the component itself is statically rendered, but bits of it, so its children, are not. It cannot come from the renderer. Or the renderer itself and the render frame tree is not enough. Someone has to make the decision which renderer to take when. If it's hard-coded in the renderer.
Well, I think that happens through Java. Now, I guess if you go back to the bUnit code, let's trying to find a good place to put us. Maybe here. So if you go to some child. Yeah, here at this point, so actually if you go to the generated file, let's do that. Yeah, so essentially at this point we are in the build render tree method when we have called assigned render mode, and we have the assigned render mode that get typed. So all of that line you have there, line 89. So at this point we are calling the builder. We're still in the building stage where we're creating the render tree. So we haven't created the render tree yet completely for this component, right? It's not done. Now, if you scroll up a bit, this, so hang on, maybe we can still get to this. So the sum parent, if you go to the sum parent, same for the sum parent, the sum parent render tree will be complete, right? Because otherwise we wouldn't be in the child. For the child render tree. So if you scroll down a bit, here we are setting, so we should actually be able to go to the parent and ask the parent, what render mode did you assign to this child component? So if you go back to our test renderer, and go into the get render mode method that we're working on. Yeah. So here we get the component state of the component, and then we get. Can you do? I think we need to do component state and then parent component. Component state.parent component logic. Should it be logical or should it not be logical?
In probably the majority of cases, the parent one. The logical one, and we never really digged into this, but I still think it's about outlets and whatnot, and we don't at least for the simple cases, we don't have that.
No, but I'm thinking
probably you can do something like that.
I'm wondering if logical parent component state is going to be the same as parent component state in most cases. But if you have a component that is added into a outlet, then I assume that component will get the outlet's render mode.
Yeah,
that must be the case, right? So, yeah, there's still some unanswered questions there. Can you do? Okay, so let's just use parent component state for now. But I put can you add a comment saying should this be logical instead? Right. Because if they default to being the same, we can just test that in the debug settings right now. Now you can do a parent component state, and then parent component state.component ID, and we can get we can call get current render tree frames on the parent component state's component ID. Yeah, we want to condition that with, because it can't be the root component, and that might not work. So yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Yeah. You are excused. It's folks. It's hard to code on stream in front of people. All right. So now we have parent frames, and now we want to go. Can you do it for each over the frames?
Mm-hmm.
Not a for each, but a for. Sorry, you have to do for.
That's not okay.
Yeah. Well, it has it's like for, and then parent frames dot, and it has a count. Yeah. Because then you have a parent frames dot array that you can go into, and what we want to look for. Yeah. Okay.
Almost.
Good. Probably a good point. So
Not this one though.
no, so the thing is, we want to find first, because in this particular test we have two child components, right? So we can't just take. So we first want to search down the parent frames for a frame type of component, and if that component is our component, the component that was passed in, if it's equal to I component, then we know that the next frame will be the render mode frame, if it is a render mode frame. So then I plus
I mean,
1.
in the simplest case, yes, but you can do this.
I'm fairly
stacked.
certain but I'm fairly certain it's gonna be that. It's always gonna have the same order for things. So
No, what I mean is like you have like parent here. No, yeah, this is not a parent. Let's do it like that. Then you have the child where you set the render mode,
yeah.
and then you have like grandchild. Wait. And then
No,
you have
but yeah.
grandchild. And
Yes,
here,
but
this one doesn't work anymore.
Yes. Yeah, because the render tree frames for grand and grandchild will not be in the parent frames. They will be in the child frames. So what we will probably see, if you actually just put a breakpoint and then do online. Well, I'm gonna have to move your head so I can see what line number you at. 266. Do var frame. So add a new line. No, sorry, go up. Before the if. You want to do ref var frame equals ref. Yeah, exactly. There you go. All right. So let's just drop the thing and put a breakpoint in there and go party on that test.
Okay. So, is it doing something? Is it building? It does.
It's building. 3 minutes and 35 seconds. That's. Are you still breaking
doubt.
on the same? I think the old test is still running.
Well, it does something. At least that.
I don't think you stopped the last run, did you? Oh.
I will abort it now, just to be really, really sure. Thank you. Now at least it tells me.
Yeah, stretching.
Yeah.
It's hard to get old.
Okay, so we're in here. Let's move this a bit down.
Actually, you want to step over and just put a breakpoint just up there so we can inspect the frame. So this is a component and it's some child. Okay, so if you step around one more time, I think the next frame will be our render mode type. So that's I is equal to 2 or 1 now. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now we have the render mode. So, and if you step over, because we're gonna go through a bunch more frames, and then we get to the second child. Then we have some markup.
Like now?
Now we got to a component 2, yeah. which has
Now do
another
it again.
ID.
It should be exactly the attribute again. See? You agree? Let's do it.
I didn't
Yeah.
see what. Interactive WebAssembly. Yeah. So there will be a render mode frame after the component frame itself. It seems.
Depending on
If
what I do
if
here.
it is set at, yeah.
If I do this here, then for sure not.
Try. I'm fairly certain it will. I think it'll reorder
You think
them.
it's always the first thing?
I would be surprised if it wasn't, but
Okay.
I hope
Okay.
that's
So this is again some child. So this is opening of the component. So we're not interested into this one. I would skip one more ahead. Yes.
yeah.
So, and there we have an attribute, and it's our ID.
Okay. So it
So not necessarily you can make the assumption of.
No, okay, but okay, so let's back up. We can make other assumptions though. All attributes will come before child content, and a new component will not come. So we can still be certain that once we've seen a component. So if you want to write out you basically say, well, what we're looking for is we want to find the set of frames that belong to the component that we are looking for render mode for, right?
Yeah.
So so the first thing we want to search for is basically you can set a Boolean flag outside of the for each. Now I'm just trying to make things up. So we just want to search linearly through the frames until we find the component that is equal to I component. Once we've done that, we want to search on until we find until we see another component, or we see
Or some
basically
markup.
until we don't see something that is an attribute. Right.
Wait, again, no.
Yeah. So if you go to HTML Analyzer, right, you have it open up in the file open there. If you go down and so we have see render frames. If you go into that method just below and scroll down a bit and go to render core. My bad. Render core. Yeah, you're on the right track. So here we go into render child component. Go click that. Yeah. And that basically calls render frames again. Okay, so go to render frames. Now, here, what we are rendering, like the order of things, it's sort of all attributes. Well, so if you go back to the example, actually, let's have a look at example. The test parent. So this is normally, let me move us again. Like some child doesn't have the property, a parameter ID. It's dumped into additional attributes, right? So what we know is that you can't have like you. So that's gonna be. It will have all the properties and additional attributes will come in their render tree after the component itself. And then if you have child content, then that will come, right? So at some point,
Or render markup.
Say again?
Or just render markup like that.
Or markup, yeah, right. But that will, so there will sort of be a render that will, when we see a render frame type that is a specific one, we know that some child. So you can add a third example. If you add a some child here where you don't set the render mode, right? Then it will just not get any, right?
Yeah.
And so I think we can reliably detect once, certainly at the point where we see another component, right? If you go back to the code, to the test renderer code, so as soon as we find the component we're looking for, so basically you want to do if frame dot frame type equals component, yeah.
Oh,
Oh
that is
well,
garbage.
not really.
This is already bullshit.
I would just
One
have,
line
I
was
would
correct.
just I would
No,
just have
this
the
one is
first one, the first line that if that one is so if we have a
We need this
component,
Bool.
yeah. What was that? Well, I would say found component frame start. I don't know. Found component. No, not just what we want to indicate that now we've moved past. We found the component's start position in the render tree. So something like found component render, found component start. Yeah. Yes. So in that, if we have a render frame type here, that is a component, and then you can say found component start equals frame dot component equals like equality. We can also go with component ID, but probably just that component equals component. So if that's the case, we found that. That's fine. Now we can do an else if. So if the frame type is not component, but we say we have found component start. So if find component start, frame found component start, yeah. And
This one, then it's false.
yeah.
again.
No, but if it's well, let's just ignore that for now, because we can just search through the whole thing. We not, but I still want to say if we found component start and the frame type is whatever frame type that is being used for render mode, render frame render tree frame.
Yeah,
That's
wait.
what I was doing.
Our head is in the way. I do it like that so folks can
Yeah.
see it.
Thanks. So if a component render mode, it's equal to then we found the thing we need to find, and we can just return.
What do we return? Oh,
We would just return render tree frame. Yeah, exactly. Now, if we sort of move past that component into a new component, we will go into line 272, and it would say yes, but then it would be no. We would basically flip found component start back to zero to false, and then the next if would never match, and so this is we're just making things up at this right now, but let's try it out. Let's see what happens.
Yup. I also would have wait. This one gone. This can be some ID. I also have to drop off afterwards, and then my question comes: do we? Depending on the state right now, the question is: we have a working version, so we have some fixes on that .NET 9 branch. It doesn't include this one, that's true. But the question is whether or not we wanna keep that branch open and do also this thing here on the same branch, or merge the branch and do this separately. So, yeah, we found the component, and the component is our child, some child.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay, so step over.
Sorry, I had to move
thanks.
our heads.
No, yeah, good, all good.
Okay, so next step, let's write this. Here should be now the ID. That is the ID thing. So that's rather a component.
That's...
we are on a completely different component right now. Maybe I should set the breakpoint in here so we have the right components, because otherwise we go to a lot of components. If this is fine with you.
Yeah, it's fine.
So maybe as well. Yeah, okay. So now we are the sum child component. We know that for sure. That's a fact. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Then let's go. Next frame should be the ID.
Yes, I believe so.
The attribute. So the frame type is no. Maybe
I think you need to step over. Still. Oh yeah, but I think you deleted the.
why is it false? It was true a second ago.
Was it? Are you sure
I
it
never
was?
specified true.
No. You are saying the equality there should make it true.
Yeah, but we are not. So our frame is we are in the wrong frame. That's why. It's just all good. It's all good.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with.
So we are component and we are fragment
it's
contained. That's what I mean. That's what
Yeah,
I mean. Like,
so-
this should
so-
evaluate to true. That's the only reason I wanted to step in here.
Yeah, I think the.
Okay.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I passed it already.
Yeah, I think we moved up a bit.
No, we never come in there. That thing is never true. And that's why we are where we are.
So maybe we can't do the. Maybe we can just do component ID. We have the parent. We have the child. We have the target component ID, and that would be component
Yeah,
state dot component ID. Oh yeah. So you have component state for the component ID. Components. No.
Can you
component
just
state.
No,
you want to do component state. So we have previously
we have it
pulled out. Yeah, we have.
we
it
have this
there.
already.
Yeah, and then ID.
But this I assume is now. Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
So
But
still
I think you could just we don't do the breakpoint should be fine. You can just I think you should be able to no problem step through all of it because we're gonna enter in. If you put a breakpoint a bit higher up before we go into the for loop, right? So just step through it one step at a time, and let's just see if we can.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So now we enter the parent, and the component we're looking for is some child. You can see that down in your threads and variables window. Yeah. So that's fine. So okay, let's step around that. Hang on.
Oh no, this is this again. We are before rendering. This
No,
the
but
child
the
already
parent-
has nothing.
The parent
Yeah,
frames.
we are not. We are not in the
We should be in the parent. The parent frame should be there.
Now
And
we are some
there.
parents. No, because we are now in some parent. I do not know why though. That makes sense. Why
Get
are we
oh,
called?
I see. Oh no, I see the mistake on line. You're under your head. Line 263. You're saying component state dot component ID. We want to do parent.
Oh. Is it not?
Yeah. Well, so why are we getting parent component frames and component? Like you're calling the same. So I think we just need to delete one of those lines. So we want to do parent component state dot parent component state dot ID, and just have one parent frames. Now it's called parent. Just call it parent frames as you had before. There you go. All right. So now we're getting parent frames. Now it should work. We were looping all our own frames. Okay. Let me move us over here to the side again.
So, frame is some child.
Yeah, I think you have some watches you can delete just to clear up your.
No, I don't have any watches.
Oh, okay. I just
They
see
would look differently.
I see. Fair enough.
That's just no, you're right. This one is. You are absolutely right.
Okay.
So,
If you hover over the equal
3,
sign,
that's a false.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's false.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
should I just
that's-
press? It's well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. There we are. Component. Oh yeah, we are not a component. In theory, I can also make a breakpoint until we hit this line again.
That shouldn't be too many frames though.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is also debugging like this is it's hard when there's so little vertical space to deal with. So it's hard to follow along. Let's see.
So now,
We-
that is true.
Hey, okay, found something. All right.
So the next bit is probably the attribute.
Yeah, the ID attribute, right?
No, this is. I don't understand the
It
order.
might be
to be
the
honest,
order we're getting in. Yeah. Okay.
I don't
so we
understand
have,
this. Okay, and this one
Yeah.
should be now true.
Yeah.
Because why is the okay? That's true. The WebAssembly one didn't have an ID.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay.
Okay, that works. Oh, yeah, fair enough. I mean, our exception is wrong because we said like empty string empty or something. Oh,
I
it shows me a lot of gibberish.
did
Let
it
me just
ran
run
out
the
of-
tests.
without debugging. Oh, because you can't pass. So it's complaining you're trying to pass ID into a component that doesn't have ID. If you go
Doesn't
to
matter.
the
Yes, I can.
no,
do that.
it does matter because
Do I
you don't
have to
have.
have
You have
unmatched?
to have
What?
a capture all. You have to have a capture all.
Oh, I thought this is the
Uh,
default. Okay, let me just remove that. And then here. Okay, so let me go to the test. Let me run the test, and then I have
Yeah,
to
just run the
drop
test without
off.
debugging. See if we get the
I mean, I
expected
can
error
check
message.
this in at least.
Okay.
Oh, at
Hey.
least it's actually what we want.
Yeah. So I guess we have a path. The code is not ready for
No,
for prime time.
Uh,
So
and the
to
test's
your,
not either.
yeah. So I know you have to leave, but so to answer your question, the .NET 9 branch we have, I think there's things related to render mode. I want to keep all of those things together, also with this. And then there's
Okay.
other things. I don't know if we have other things in there.
No,
we have-
it's just
no.
the assigned render mode and renderer info.
Okay, so maybe we can rename the branch to assigned render mode, and we can fix that up next time.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Yeah, so I think we have a way forward. What we need to do next time would be to write a bunch of tests that test the different edge cases, like with properties and
Yeah.
the things.
Okay, I would check this in and call this just a work in progress, and we have to
Yeah,
squash
yeah,
this.
absolutely. So I think that's positive because that means that we can absolutely surface whatever the user puts in a test where the bUnit renderer can simulate being all different kinds of renderer, right?
Yep.
Now that might cause problems, I guess, for people, right? Because if they are expecting, I don't know what kind of behavior they might have in that component. If they say it's a WebAssembly, then I'm going to do one thing, and then it's going to server, then we're going to do another thing. Maybe there's services and other things then you want to inject, but then that's up to them, right? To
Yeah.
potential. I'm not sure. Well, okay, I think. Hey, the sun glare is gone from your camera now. it's nighttime. I can see. All right. Okay, Stephen. I think that's actually. I think it's decent progress. I think.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. I will go in and update the issue just so we have a starting point where we don't have to rediscover everything again next time.
True.
Okay.
True.
Yeah,
I did, by the way, the
and-
same with the other tickets we had about the navigation properties, but that's maybe something for next Friday or the Friday after. So to keep our memories somewhat in a written shape and form.
Yeah. Awesome. I think that's great. So we can more quickly get going again next
Yes,
time.
exactly.
All right. Well, everybody, thanks for joining us. Have a excellent weekend, and thanks for coding with us. Bye-bye.
See you next week. Bye.
Okay.
Boah.